Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Live.
There's Terry.
Tyson Terry.
And Tyson Terry is a four-time heavyweight state champion, a first ever in Nebraska high school wrestling history.
Oregon inbound. Up top to Shellstat. Shellstat. Long three. Oh! Tie game!
Here's Braden Smith bringing it up low. Miles West picks his pocket, lays it up, score!
Padula turns around with a three and short. Ticks to the left baseline, retrieved by Tanner. And the time runs out. Vanderbilt needed a win. The Commodores deliver. 77-72 against Ole Miss.
Try to get Kalkbrenner some more close touches if you can. You're trying to roll him down into the paint. 7 to shoot. There has been nothing going offensively. Oh, with the balance. Great call. Ashworth, that's a deep three. They don't get that without him. As Kalkbrenner stuffs away the dunk attempt to Peavy. Kalkbrenner runs. Lob. Brenner flushes. What a sequence.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. What is up, DB?
How we doing?
We're doing all right.
Good.
Busy weekend?
So yes and no. It
Okay.
wasn't overly I guess it wasn't productive,
But busy.
but very busy. Super busy. It started Friday, obviously. Saturday hit Fairfield. Watched a lot of television. So
Okay.
it was a bad sporting weekend for me, in my opinion. Wasn't a lot of
Not a ton of great games.
nothing too captivating. What else? Fairfield was good.
Yeah?
Yeah, Fairfield was good. State wrestling was good.
Hanging out with the fine people just south of Hastings there?
Yeah, actually, I had no idea what a standalone Sandy Creek High School is.
Oh, yeah.
It's just so you bang the right, and there's Fairfield, like on the four-way corner is Sandy Creek High School. Then you got to go to like Superior. It's another 29 miles. Hastings is 20 the other way.
Yeah.
I guess Little Nelson. I don't know what's in Nelson.
I don't either.
Never been to Nelson.
Me either.
But yeah, so it was an interesting, very interesting weekend. I was hoping a lot of the guys came down, actually passed Caleb on the interstate coming back from Omaha Saturday night. I was coming back to Omaha. He was going to Lincoln from Omaha because the crew came up to watch Tyson, and then he had dinner at my mom's, which, of course, I missed. Still mad about that. it's totally fine. But I don't know, man. A lot of bad television. I did binge 2 shows.
What do we get today? What do we get this weekend?
I mean, start to finish.
Okay.
Now, full disclosure, it was only 9 episodes.
Total? Between the 2 shows?
Correct.
Okay. What do we got?
So I knocked out Reacher,
Okay.
and there was just 3. And I knocked out Paradise.
Is that the whole 3 is the whole season, or that's just what's out so
it's
far?
just all that's been released.
Oh, okay.
And they tease you, right? Because you can see, continue watching,
Yeah.
but you can't click on it.
Yeah, that's annoying. Knock that off Amazon.
I'm like, fuck. So very, very, very little sleep.
Yeah.
No, I mean like watching television through the night. Like it's some issues.
It's a problem.
It is.
Need to work on that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the last couple of high school matches I had to watch in Fairfield.
Right. Yeah.
Because, well, let me tell you about my setup.
Okay.
It's a good thing and I don't think I'm telling on myself because I mean, NDOT, I was seat belted up.
Okay.
Laptop,
Yep.
sitting next to me. Omaha baseball.
Yep.
Radio, Iowa State, Houston.
Okay.
I was listening to Kugler. Phone, Nebraska baseball. It is incredible. But it's the most mindless drive ever. I mean, I just got to
Yeah, you just got to power
south
through.
at Aurora, right?
Yeah, you just got to power through it.
And that Aurora gas station, the Arby's and Love gas station,
Yeah.
is the gas station where I picked up both my dogs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You don't know how tempting it was. Saturday night, I was getting ready to get back on the interstate to come back to Omaha, and it said Central City, 37 miles. And I was like, shoot, man. I got to go. I might as well just go to Central City.
Let's go hang out.
Nah, but Brett, he and Leah were on their way back from wrestling.
I was going to say.
I said, where are you? He's like, oh, I'm on 144th. I'm in Omaha. And I was like, damn, this is kind of weird.
I was going to say, your friends even out there?
Hey, what's the code?
TK checking in from Blue Hill, Nebraska, which is actually not
That's not
that
far from where I was.
Yeah, it's not far from where you were, kind of south of Hastings there.
Yeah, that's not far at all.
I think he's a little further west.
Why is he in Blue Hill?
I don't know. TK, why are you in Blue Hill, buddy? Give us a shout out. Maybe families from there?
Yeah.
What's that?
So do you know, are you when you watch shows, are you gotta hook me right away?
Kind of.
Okay. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about how gamification and competitive stamina works watching television.
Okay, but I've got an inkling before the season.
Why did you pronounce every syllable?
Well,
Inkling?
You know,
You got a what?
I'm very well spoken.
Not like the others.
Just like to make sure people don't think I have an accent. No, I've got an inkling that
Do you want to do
like
your own accent?
Uruguay. No, I've got an inkling that you watch a lot of things you shouldn't because you're being competitive, or you watch things a lot longer than you should
Pot committed.
because you're being competitive with yourself and like, oh, I started it, I'm gonna finish.
Oh, throw in one more bad show early Saturday morning. So this one was probably 4:50 to 9, maybe. It was like the Russian version of Rambo.
Oh my gosh.
It's called Flint.
What are you doing, man?
Super bad.
What
It
do
was
you-
Rambo. It was basically
What do you-
they had the general that popped in and was like, I'm here to save you from my boy, except it was in an accent. I watched
Is it an old show?
No. It's only 4 episodes. That's how bad it was.
Dude.
Listen, I watched a whole series start to finish with no English spoken on the television.
Dude.
It was subtitles.
Come on, man.
Hey, man.
What are you doing?
Well, I was in. I was like, this is gonna be like Rambo, isn't it? Drifter, Lawless Town.
So here's, you know what I do?
What?
If I'm sort of curious,
Just Google Flint. It's got to have
0 stars.
I mean, it's horrible.
So instead of wasting a lot of time,
Yeah.
I
wasn't doing anything.
you should have been go sleep at some point,
couldn't.
man.
I couldn't. I have a lot. I have to close up a lot of loose ends this week. I got to figure out what to do with my car. I have to finish doing Caleb's deal today or tomorrow. Hopefully end of the month. I think they want to wait.
Yeah.
The dealership's doing us a solid, so we're going to do them a solid and let them.
Yeah.
I think good things happen at the end of the month for dealers.
Yeah, a lot of times they're getting
So they're
incentives
kinda
rolling and
stretching
stuff.
me,
Yeah.
a little bit, and one more thing is hanging over my head. I don't know, just kind of I can't sleep.
It's just stretching out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just lot of little loose.
I'm
ends
just
I
saying
gotta
there's
tie.
better things to watch than random Russian.
Hey, did you pull it up?
I can't even find it.
Yeah, Flint.
I know I'm looking. I went Flint and then I went Flint show. The internet doesn't think this exists. What service was it on? Was it on your weird service?
No, I think it was. They would probably
Is it
show
Netflix?
There were 3 ways to watch it. One of them was Tubi. One of them was Roku. So you know it's bad.
Oh yeah, it means it's very bad.
Yeah.
It's a TV miniseries from
2012.
Yeah.
Is
It's a 6.3.
Is it Flint Town? No, that's a.
Shane? What'd you look at it under?
Internet Movie Database.
That's right, Shane's wheelhouse. So that was early.
I think that's the first time in about 15 years I've heard anybody not call it IMDb.
Yeah, and I'm the IMDb king.
Like, I don't think I've ever, like, it threw me off. I thought he was going to the
You say it to yourself real slow. The only reason I know is because what do I always say? I just use IMDb.
Yeah, but I've never. I mean, it's been literal years since I've heard.
I didn't even know what it stood for.
Internet Movie Database.
I didn't even know what it stood for. That one was terrible. But let me tell you about Paradise.
Okay. Oh, that's the one with Sterling K. Brown.
Love Sterling K. Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They think he killed the president, right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
we both kind of have this thing with our forehead that it protrudes a little bit. So I'm like, gosh, you could still do TV.
Definitely what I thought you were going with what you guys have in common.
Do TV because I'm insecure.
You're on TV all the time.
Yeah, but that's on accident. It's not.
You accidentally drive to KETV every week. Accidentally do a segment with Lauren, who's holding your hand the whole time.
Basically.
Okay. Just making sure.
Do you know how many of those I've been through? I started with Thor Trip.
That's back in the day.
How about that?
I believe he's a real estate mogul now.
Yeah, they're in a whole new building. It's renovated, and I used to stand on the shoebox.
It's because he's like 6'12".
Dude, my man, yeah, seriously, he was a giant human being. And
it's not like Andy's small.
No, but Andy,
Thor's a giant.
Andy's so big time. He's moved on past that.
Oh,
I don't even see him on Sundays.
Yeah,
he's like,
got to keep it pushing.
Don't
pressing.
But competitive stamina.
Okay.
First episode, I was like, oh shoot, this is gonna be good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in, locked. 2 happened. I'm like, you got to be.
This might be pretty bad.
You've got to be kidding me. Are you serious? So what'd your boy do? Put the remote control down. I hit pause. Let the dogs out. Shoveled the entrance to the deck because I knew it was going to melt.
Mm-hmm.
And collected my bearings. Gave it about 45 minutes. Went back to it. Toughed it out through 3. I'm like, oh, shoot, this thing might be good. Now I think it's pretty fantastic. I was this close to giving up. And it turned out to be a really, really good series. And there's only 6 of them.
You got to be continually
pressing.
I
know.
Here's the problem, though.
What?
This is actually kind of very similar to our outlooks on life and people and the whole thing, right? Very similar. Because you're going to end up watching 99 Flints to get to 1 Paradise. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm okay missing on the 1 Paradise. So I don't have to waste my time with 99 Flints, you know?
It's fine.
It's a very similar outlook we have on life.
Are you a Reacher guy?
No, so I haven't watched it, but the clips look interesting on TikTok. Like I've seen several. I'm like, okay, I could watch this.
Yeah.
Like that seems interesting. I could watch that for sure.
I've never cheered so hard for a guy to catch up with my man Quinn.
Yeah.
Although it's not my man. It's the guy that I showed you that always gets typecasted to play the Asian gangster.
Oh, yeah. But he's not a bad guy this time, right? Or he is?
That guy's a horrible guy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the guy that you're like, oh, man, so much worse than the John Wick stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Way worse.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Anyway.
That's all right. Well, it's a lot of TV this weekend.
Even the Creighton game was bad.
So that
Nebraska baseball was horrible.
You know what's Omaha baseball is good.
Omaha baseball is sensational.
Yeah.
Although your boy was going to pull over about
when LSU's crawling back into that thing.
Yeah,
I was a little worried.
1st and 3rd, no outs. I was a little
worried.
I'm like, this is what we're on, guys?
Yeah. Up 5-0, and they're crawling back into that thing. And it
booted me out of my login TV subscriber. I'm like, don't act like you can catch that I'm using the same device. They're within a foot of each other, and it's the same dude.
It's not
What? This doesn't work like that?
No.
Damn it.
It's not about proximity.
Well, why does it say, are you temporarily here with the little airplane thing?
Well, so that's when you're out of town, but your devices have different IDs. So it can tell when you're logging in from multiple devices, even if they were I could log in, I could put my phone on my laptop, right here and log in.
I feel like you're getting ready to be sarcastic.
No, I'm like it could be right here, so it's literally on the same space, and it would be able to tell that they're two different devices because it's the device IDs and the IP addresses and all that.
It's flickering.
To heck with technology.
I know.
So it made me like do some
authentication
code.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you're doing that on your phone and you have to like stay on the same screen, then tap back out to get the code and then get back to the screen.
Yeah. You know what's really, really cool when you don't have an Android?
That's fine.
That's 3 subtle shots in the first 13 minutes. It's fine. I mean, I know how this is going to go now, so I'm firmly in DOT, baby. I'm buckled up. It's fine.
So when you're doing an authentication with an iPhone, it can tell
some of the things that I need codes for do.
Yeah, like auto-populate.
Yeah. Some do, some don't.
Yeah.
This one did not.
It's like some of your text messages go through. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah,
some of your...
like your random. There's a 3-response text stream between the same 4 people that have been texting for 2 months.
Yeah. And then randomly, I'll try and send you guys something, and it'll be like not delivered. And I'm like, that's DB's fault.
I just don't know if I'll turn the corner.
Everybody else on that chat has an iPhone. I know who's responsible here. And listen, I'm not a hater. Like, you want to have an Android, you want to have an Android. That's fine.
Let's say I give in.
Okay.
Right? Free agent, lease is up.
Mm-hmm.
You're still going. I mean, do you want to spend 45 minutes just sitting here telling me how to use my phone?
If it's an iPhone, I'd be thrilled to.
Because that's what's going to have to happen.
Because I know how iPhones work, right?
Didn't you set up my emails?
Yeah.
And all that? Yeah, you'd have to do. So I would just give you my phone.
And I'd set everything up, which is fine because I know how iPhones work. What I get frustrated with is I'm not as familiar with Androids because I don't like my mom has one, so when she needs help, I'll help her out. But I don't have the familiarity with
comparing me to your to being tech savvy like your mom now.
My mom needs less help than you do.
It's incredible. That's 4.
That one wasn't subtle. That one was
That's
pretty
4, but who's counting? That's fine.
No, so it gets frustrating for me
just because I said I like Creighton's uniforms and you didn't.
No, I like the uniforms. I had a problem with the quarter zips, which they looked cool, but they're exact same color as Georgetown. Like, made me think this out a little bit, guys.
That's I read that. I'm like, I'm not even going to argue with him. My man is just being nitpicky. It's the same goddamn trim. It's the great big old C in the
I
blue.
get it. And listen, I understand in the Big East, it's hard to find somebody that doesn't have navy blue so you can offset. I get that.
Should have went with Quavo.
But
But
not a big Migos guy in general.
Wash your mouth out, man.
I don't know. That's not for me. No, but it's like I sent you a picture of the 2 guys at the scorer's table.
I know.
They could have worked.
I understood.
They could have worked for the exact same team. I never would have known.
I think that was just a humble brag for the seats.
No.
You reach out and touch those guys.
I thought I was going to get checked into the game at one point. Cooley was putting anybody in he could.
That's how I feel when I go with the AC.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know what's funny, though? So, I haven't – I'm very fortunate. Those aren't my seats. I'm not like that. But I'm very fortunate that I've gotten to sit in behind the –
That's too close, though. You know that, right?
So, that's actually not bad. I've sat – like, if I'm down 2
that
rows –
had to be the 4th row.
A second.
Sorry.
4th row is actually about perfect. Like 4th row is because you can see right over the players.
That's cute.
2nd row.
Could you smell their sweat?
No, that's gross, man. Probably get out of there. Just keep on snipping. No, so I've sat down where the tables are, so like right behind the bench. That's too close because then you do get your view blocked. It's pretty cool, but you do get your view blocked a lot.
Wow.
2nd row is not bad.
You arguing? I'm like, I think people they just don't want to be happy. I was so mad.
Oh, I thought the uniforms were great, but it was
and I had to deal with this a little bit in Fairfield to some degree, and Friday, and apparently this is going to be a thing, but
this isn't good, by the way. Just unrelated. Go ahead.
Is there some joke?
Competitive stamina. We're gonna get through it. It's fine. Better than the caramel.
Push through, baby.
Yeah, we got it.
No waste. No waste.
Press it.
Push through.
All right. Sorry, Fairfield.
finding things to complain about is a lot like this whole Tennessee thing. I'm gonna lose my mind
over the Tennessee thing.
Yes.
Why is that?
You have Ravi.
You talk to me.
I'm trying not to even get worked up.
Okay.
The fact. All right.
Let's do it. Let's get in it.
888-638-4876.
Yeah, even though we're all digital, you can still call us.
Are you mad Nebraska rescheduled? This should not be a thing.
Well, they didn't reschedule. They canceled, right?
Fine.
But, I mean, it's different because they've rescheduled this like 4 times.
No.
Against Tennessee.
Cancel your – I don't care what it is.
That's fine.
The fact that they're not playing this game, stop bitching.
I haven't said anything.
Knock it off. You make a better case.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more apt to listen to you over the spring game than I am Nebraska canceling this deal with Tennessee.
Can I tell you a little secret? I am more upset about the spring game than I am Tennessee.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
I don't care about
better case.
I don't
I'm not here for either one, but I at least understand.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying on the spring game.
You can make there are legitimate points to the spring game. You can't make one, not one legitimate point about being upset about Tennessee.
So I think what people are actually upset about.
Not one.
Maybe I'm speaking for people here, but I'm trying to.
Hit your boy, yep.
888-638-4876. Give us a call if you think DB's on one. But I understand. I think what people are actually mad about with the Tennessee thing is not about.
Are you like Lincoln? Who are you right now?
You do suits? We're going to do suits a little bit here.
I've never gotten into that show, but the amount of people crying over that, it was aggravating me too.
I haven't watched the LA one or whatever. No, I think what people are actually upset about is
seats? Huh? Do I look like I'd be a suits guy?
Yeah. You used to wear suits all the time.
Yes, I did.
You were rolling.
Yeah, need to have some of those bad boys tailored.
Big corporate DB over here.
Never was part of the establishment.
No, it was education.
Anti-establishment.
You were admin DB.
Yes.
Which is still sort of part of the establishment, but
yeah,
not really part of the rat race as much. A little different.
Big salmon guy.
Salmon? Yeah. Swimming upstream.
See?
You gotta be careful. You get bloodied sometimes.
I do.
I think what people are actually upset about with the Tennessee thing, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm giving people too much credit here. That seems unlikely, though, because I usually don't. I think
is this bizarro world?
I think what they're actually upset about is the fact that this is sort of an indicator of these series just aren't going to get played anymore.
Okay.
And I think that's true, and I can understand why you'd be upset about it. But the truth of the matter is, if you're Nebraska, if you're anybody in the Big Ten, and you're trying to make it to a college football playoff, you shouldn't play these games.
Yeah,
you shouldn't.
Especially
until the SEC decides to play 9 conference games. Now, if the SEC decides to play 9 conference games, maybe we can revisit the discussion.
That's all you need to say right there.
Yeah. The SEC can afford to play these games. The Big Ten can't.
This fake macho.
We should play the best. No, we should try and win 9 games, and that will give you a chance to be in the college football playoff every year.
At what point are you going to actually defend Nebraska about not always taking it on the chin? We always acquiesce. We always concede. We always take one for the team. Enough.
Yeah, don't always have to be Nebraska nice. More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next.
be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live, here on the Pillar Exterior Stage. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla, and we're brought to you by our friends over at the NDOT. I wouldn't necessarily take all of DB's driving advice, but certainly take the advice about clicking that seatbelt and making sure you're preventing injuries and saving lives. Gotta make it click. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. DB.
Although, like the last 6 or 7, about the last 7 or 8 years, it's almost been impeccable.
Oh, I just mean like with your setup.
Oh, man. Have you ever been inside my head?
No, I haven't. It
I can compartmentalize
seems terrifying.
like a mofo.
Seems terrifying.
What the kids say?
I don't know. I hear them saying sus a lot.
Yeah, I'm over that.
That's all I know.
So there's a couple of those little 3-word deals I'm over. Bro.
Sus.
Mid. Over it.
What do those mean?
And there's some new ones. Sus is suspect. Mid just means kind of
like average, meh.
Standard.
Yeah.
What
Basic.
was the other one I said?
Bro.
You know bro.
Bro means like bro.
Bruh.
What about the 4-letter bruh?
I'm 50.
You're over bruh.
Yeah. Over that one.
You're a man? You're 50?
Some people just do it like by habit. And I'm like, knock it off. But again, it's like, and maybe this is because I'm old is why I think this is, I can't believe this argument.
The Tennessee thing?
And I ride with Captain a ton, but that argument right there is so caveman and Neanderthalic. I cannot tell you. Because if I say that I couldn't care less that Nebraska canceled the series, or that they've taken it on they played the nice guy forever, like do what's best for you. That means I'm afraid of competition. Doesn't have any. Listen, man, those things don't have anything to do with each other. Don't do the SEC any favors until they're playing the same amount of conference games as you. If you want to play somebody else, play somebody else.
No, but you got to look out for you for now.
But don't play Tennessee.
Yeah, you're going to play somebody Big 12
It doesn't have
something.
anything to do with how I feel about the competition. That's the – man, see, those are the kinds of things – that's the kind of people – that's what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, you know, when's the last time – there was a Sports Illustrated article. No, it was a cover. A cover. A couple teams on there that were winning in the Big 8, and it was called the Big 2. Nobody cared.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody cared. Nobody cared that Michigan and Ohio State didn't play a Power 4 opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cared that Oklahoma backed out of the series during the Big 12 days. Nebraska acquiesce.
Always.
How many games do you want to start on the road when you're trying to bring a program back 4 years in a row before you're like, oh, man, who cares who we play? Go on the road. Yeah, where'd that machismo and that macho BS get you? Nowhere. Not a goddamn place.
Not anytime recently.
So, what are we talking about?
I mean, we act like Iowa hasn't not left the state of Iowa.
And we cried.
In a decade.
We
for a
cried
non-con
over the
game.
scheduling.
Yeah.
Since we've been in the Big Ten. Literally.
Oh, man, they don't do us any favors.
Literally cried.
Oh, man, they're killing us on the schedule. Well, if they're going to kill you on the schedule, which, by the way.
But we cancel a series we can't even defend it's criminal. It's criminal. But listen, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I am going to listen to some constructive arguments other than I'm afraid of competition.
So the only thing I can think of,
okay,
and I think it was with Josh Pate, which was sort of
young Yeshua Pate.
Yeah, he
Pate?
was
goose liver.
Pate.
See,
yeah. I think he was kind of foreshadowing this a little bit, knew it was coming, but we didn't know it yet. Didn't really know what he was talking about. Well, not officially.
Okay.
I don't think the common folk knew that it was coming. But there was a line that I believe it was with Josh that Coach Rule said, hey, we used to have to go out and schedule these non-conference games and give something exciting for the fans, but now when you've got USC and Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State in your conference, it feels like the conference games are those marquee matchups that you didn't get in some other iterations of the conference, right? So why would you know that you could get Oregon and Washington and UCLA and USC and Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State, all pretty marquee programs, by the way, right? And we haven't even gotten to the people that we really hate, like Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. But I think I just rattled off 12 teams right there.
Where was all this pushback when we were going to Lubbock on a Thursday night for an ESPN game?
Yeah.
Why would we do that?
But when you've got all those teams in your conference.
We're playing Texas Tech. It's mid-90s. Do you know why nobody cares? Because they're winning.
Because they're going to win by 60.
Right?
But you're winning.
But I think it's really easy to forget that, hey, all these teams that would have been non-conference marquee matchups 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they're just conference games now.
Do you know what really makes me mad?
What's that?
Well, there's lots. Other than the stupid competition argument. But in one vein, this is the same person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This is the duality of just wanting to bitch and moan. Man, we need to be more like Indiana. See how quickly you can turn it around? Look at Coach Cigaretti.
Not bad.
Right?
Yeah.
Google me.
Yeah.
Why can't we be Indiana? See, man, Rule, he's a fraud. See how Cignetti do it? Exactly. Not bad.
Do we want to Google Indiana's non-con?
Listen, in the same vein.
You want me to Google Indiana's non-con?
No, because we talked about their schedule all year. So this is the left side of me talking to these people mad at Nebraska that they can't be Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is a different day when the clock hits 6 a.m. Man, I can't believe you're not playing tougher non-cons. The frick, man. You use it to validate Indiana when you want to compare the barometer to Nebraska, but then in the same vein are mad that they're not playing Tennessee because Tennessee – why would you do Tennessee any favors?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do the SEC any favors?
You shouldn't. There's no reason to.
And stop the duality of the argument because what's been proven? It doesn't flipping matter.
It doesn't, especially now. If you're a 9 or 10 win team in the Big Ten, you're going to have a shot to be in the playoff. That's it. That's the full story. Now, if you're on the 9 side, maybe they start looking at strength of schedule, but you know what's a lot easier makes it a lot easier to get to 10? To not play Tennessee in the non-con.
Again, you want to know one of the things another one of the 6 things that's pissing me off?
What's that?
Who was the guy that 5 years ago, pre-COVID,
mm-hmm.
said, hey, you know what? Like, what's the incentive to schedule with auto bids? Teams are going to not be incentivized to schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I hate auto bids. Oh, man, Damon, but the conference strength, man, and all you want to do is get a seat at the table. Okay, but I don't want to just – I'm the same dude.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just be entertained. I want to see who's the best.
Sure.
Oh, man, just get a seat at the table. Okay. And what do I always say? To foolishness or whatever, I'm like, I'll play any game that people want to play. Just tell me the rules.
Sure.
Right?
Like, tell me.
I'll adjust.
Give me the landscape.
So now the rules are just get there. Okay. So if that's the desired outcome,
mm-hmm.
right, and it's E plus R equals O, right? Event
mm-hmm.
plus response equals outcome.
Yep.
And the outcome comes first.
Yep.
I.e.,
make the playoffs.
Make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I can control is my response. I have to play the game the way that it's going to be played.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the argument?
I don't have a good one. I really don't.
Unless you just want to be that person that wants something to complain about, you're going to get your entertainment value. And here's the beauty of it. These people that are talking about home games
mm-hmm.
and not being entertained, you know what's entertaining? Winning.
Yep.
Do you know who is going anyway that isn't always concerned about who you're playing on that home game slate? Season ticket holders. Do you know the people that like to bitch the most? People that don't even go.
That don't spend the money on it.
You're not even going.
Yeah.
So why do you care?
And it's not costing the university anything that
and if you
aren't
don't want to
happy.
watch, if it's not in your viewing time slot because there's other competitive games, then go watch them.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
We just want, and I'm mad at me for being mad over just being mad.
For letting people get to you.
No. For entertain, yes, kind of. But, why are you doing it, though? What's the end game to be bitching about it?
Well, I mean.
And then to be disingenuous.
I think the only.
we don't understand $8 million and an extra home game and revenue. We can't multiply by 6. We can't multiply the $8 million
mm-hmm.
to get the buyout.
Yeah.
Right? We're mad about Valentino's. We're mad about Runza. We're mad about
spent $500,000 to make $8 million. That's basically the equation, right? They spent $500,000 to cancel to series to get $8 million to get the home game back.
Yeah,
that's pretty good math
over the course of the season.
Yeah,
not per game.
Yeah. But I mean, over the course of the season, $8 million over 8 home games is $1 million.
Again, if you're about business, which you want your athletic director to be. Right?
It's the only reason Nebraska's in the position it is right now because they've been business savvy.
You have to be thinking dollars and cents. And if you already, it's like digital versus radio. If you already own the inventory,
mm-hmm.
stay in house.
Yeah.
Stay in house. That's how you make the numbers work.
There's only one sort of valid argument that I can come up with. And it's, frankly, I don't think it's a good one, but it's the only one I can even come up with.
What you got?
Is
show
and you sort of address this, is are you doing the fans a disservice by taking away a marquee game?
No.
That's the only thing I can even come up with.
I think the fans want to do at the end of the day?
Win.
Just ask them. They just want to win. Would you like to be Indiana or Nebraska last year?
Indiana.
Okay.
That's it. You know who Indiana played in the non-con last year?
Ask this, because that's too easy.
Yeah.
Right? I would be mad if somebody asked me a well-done question. Just say, are you the same person that would complain about Nebraska starting on the road, having canceled games,
mm-hmm. About the way Big Ten schedules,
not getting the advantage of the Big Ten scheduling since you've been in the league? Are you the same person that has compared Ohio State, Iowa, and Wisconsin's scheduling to Nebraska? If you're that same person,
mm-hmm.
I'm not listening.
FIU, Western Illinois, Charlotte.
It's just disingenuous.
FIU, Western Illinois, Charlotte.
And if Nebraska's not good because they're playing Powder Puffs, it will reveal itself too. At the end of the day, you got to win.
More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next.
We will be back. be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. And getting back into the Tennessee-Nebraska series conversation, this feels very much like a February story. Like 6 months from now, does anyone care?
Yeah, I guess my point is why drive that narrative?
Which one? That it's a big deal?
Yeah, like just more fake outrage.
Also, let's not pretend like teams don't cancel these all the time.
Man,
all the time. Let's not pretend like this specific one hasn't been delayed like 3 or 4 times. You know what I mean? Like this is not. I don't know. I don't think it's unusual. This is a very Nebraska in February story. That like there's no football all the time. Like that's how it comes off to me.
It just comes off as real disingenuous. Is what it comes off as.
Well, I mean, some people don't know how to create content without being mad about something.
And I mean, like, well, I mean, sometimes like people just have to take a look at it. Am I being consistent, or is this just fluid in the moment? I'm talking about from a fan perspective too.
Yeah.
Like we want it every different way. We can't even decide how we really want it. It's just whatever comes up.
Mm-hmm.
It's well. I feel like this because, and it's like, well, wait a minute. In the totality of what all the things that have been bothering you, like, where's the consistency in that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, let's not pretend like back when Nebraska was winning a lot that they had these crazy non-cons all the time.
We said the same thing about Notre Dame's schedule when we looked at it last year, right?
Oh, they better win out because there's nothing good on that schedule. They still lost one to Northern Illinois and still made the playoff.
I just don't understand.
I
don't. Like, just be for bettering Nebraska.
I understand in the sense that if Nebraska was winning more, this isn't an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the reality, right? If Nebraska was winning more, we're not having this conversation most likely. We don't be like, oh, that's too bad. I was kind of looking forward to going to Knoxville or whatever.
I feel like, you know what I feel like that is, though? I saw a meme or what is it when you have, like, people like use a picture and there's like a cartoon? It's a meme, right?
Yeah, it's a meme.
Okay, so there's this chicken next to the egg in bed.
Okay.
And they're apparently a couple. And the egg is smoking a cigarette.
Okay.
And the chicken looks at the egg and says, guess that debate's over. That's how I felt about this conversation. Winning comes first. What?
It's kind of a funny meme.
I'm funny.
Well, the meme was funny.
It's all in the art. Telling the story.
Oh, okay.
It's all in the delivery. At least that's what I heard about the mail before it gets canceled. It's all in the delivery. It's just frustrating.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get that it is not. I mean,
it's not even sound.
No, like the sound of silence.
In no way, shape, or form is it even. It's like this great big old echo chamber.
It is something that I don't even understand what Captain is saying. If Nebraska was winning more than play better teams? ?
He's, I think, kind of his style. I think he's asking if that's what you're saying. Because you just kind of just said.
My thing is, if Nebraska was winning more, we wouldn't care about this at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so maybe that's clarity.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he's asking. I hope that answers your question. Because I wasn't being sarcastic.
I still don't think you'd care.
Yeah, if Nebraska's winning more, you don't care about this story or the non-con or whatever.
Nope.
Like if Nebraska's 9-10 wins a year, you go, you got to do what you got to do to try and
remember when it was cool to go on the road to Tempe,
and
the back end of a home and home.
Wasn't that cool?
Yeah, we got our ass kicked.
Wasn't that cool?
So like if that's what's going to happen,
yeah,
then that's just what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Nobody cared at the time though.
I mean, they cared about the loss.
Sure, after it happened, but
yeah, nobody cared on the front end about going to Tempe.
No.
Yeah.
No. Nobody cared about going to Lubbock on a Thursday night.
Or West Virginia or wherever.
You know?
Or West Virginia.
Now that would be blasphemy.
Yeah.
Why would you go on the road
to start the season
on Thursday night?
Yeah.
Against another power, at that time would have been 5.
Yeah.
Or 6 opponent.
Yeah.
Just sometimes you just do it.
And like Tennessee's good right now. You know,
they're better than Nebraska, but I don't know about.
I mean, they're not great, but they're good. They're a good football program right now. They're probably going to win.
It's better. It's in a better place than Nebraska.
8 to 10 wins, probably somewhere in that neighborhood is where Tennessee's been living lately.
Yeah,
like that's a team that you don't necessarily, if you're trying to build on the way up, it's the team that you don't necessarily want to have to deal with, especially when you have to go play 9 conference games.
And this is kind of on the heels of. I think Sam just wrote about this. I haven't gotten into the nitty gritty of it yet.
SkyMax says I still hate Jake Plummer.
Yeah, that's one of those things, SkyMax. This isn't revisionist history either.
Yeah.
When we were preparing for that game, like we were told
that he was like that.
We were told that some of the individual pieces, we were told about Poole. We were told about Mitchell Friedman. We were told about Derek Rogers. We were told about Fiore.
Just didn't listen?
I mean, that's kind of I mean, you don't know the impact until
you see it.
Yeah, until your teeth are loose and
so
you're down a couple scores.
This is a really strange correlation, but I remember, I think it was Gary Danielson was doing the call of Florida State, Virginia Tech in the 99 into 2000 national championship. Mm-hmm. And he was telling the story about how Bobby Bowden was having the hardest time convincing his players on Florida State that Virginia Tech was the same quality of athlete and opponent as a Florida, as a Miami, as a Nebraska, at that point. Like you could tell them all about Michael Vick that you want, right? You can play the tape and whatever, but sometimes mentally it's hard to be like, oh, Arizona State's like these other teams. Yeah. Like, was it just hey, you had a hard time believing Arizona State was like Miami or Oklahoma or whoever, right? I mean, guess not Oklahoma at the time, but
I mean, and that year
until you see it and then it's boom.
Yeah, like that talent, the staff proved to be right. I mean, they played for a national championship.
Yeah.
But at that point, it's like you just kind of eye roll. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and at the time, you don't know what Arizona State's going to be. They end up going to the Rose Bowl. Yeah. Really good team, right? Like that doesn't end up being a bad loss. But at the time, you go, I mean, it's a bad loss because of how it went down, right? But at the time, you go, oh, we beat this team by 70 last year. What just happened?
When OU was trying to reschedule the series, I think this is either 10 and 11 or 11 and 12 or maybe both years to push the series back, and it was coming to an end.
10, 11, 12.
We looked at it from like a rivalry standpoint, right? Or was it a quality of competition thing?
With Oklahoma, rivalry.
Because Nebraska took the high road. That was all Oklahoma's doing.
Yeah, they were dictating. And that's what you're talking about with taking it on the chin, right? It's just Nebraska always getting terms dictated to them.
All constantly.
Rather than dictating terms to other people.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we just have a really, really – and I'm just going to defend – right, I'm just defending right now. This is more about – like if the desired outcome is to have Nebraska in a position to just get to the tournament, then what are we talking about?
So
and you can't be mad. They're just playing the game. It would be foolish not to.
Yeah.
They aren't incentivizing you to keep that game on the schedule.
No. Especially with a 9-game conference slate.
And dirty little secret, man. Like if somehow the minute that this thing is over and you get out of the agreement to enlarge the playoffs, expand, and it goes to whatever the number
16,
is,
14,
and you get
16.
4-4, that 2026 is going to matter.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I don't know.
I also just kind of sit there and I look at it and I go, okay, so I understand everything you're saying, and then I could also understand the argument, sort of the same argument I made about the spring game last week was, okay.
Spring game's a better argument.
If you're going to tell me that Nebraska needs to give up the spring game for a competitive advantage in the fall, then I need to see that in the fall.
Yeah.
Like if you're telling me, hey, we're getting rid of Tennessee.
Okay, but you're also the guy that said, in addition to, so this like and you better win X amount of games.
Yes, and I shouldn't have put a specific number on it, but you better win more.
Yes, and I didn't want to hold you to that, so I just said, win
for sure.
X amount of games.
And
well, this is part of it,
right? And so that's what I'm gonna say. If you're dropping Tennessee, you damn well better beat Akron. You know what I mean? Like that's the other half of the coin. You're dropping Tennessee, you better get the other.
You'd have to beat them anyway,
right?
So,
in order to be in that position.
Like the players, that's different. Like they don't think like that. That's a
fan thing. 100%.
That's a total.
That's a fan thing.
And I'm not disparaging that. I'm just saying I don't make that correlation.
Right. One of the things that I look at is considering Nebraska has struggled some in non-cons against non-Power 5 opponents. I'm saying, okay, if I'm going to drop Tennessee, I damn well better beat Akron.
100.
Sam McKewon coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Live. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. That kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
Listen, the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys of this business, come back from 20 down and win a really good road game against a team that went into Ohio State and beat them by 21 points. That's a hell of a win. And, you bounce back with a poor effort. And, that's the disappointing thing about that. But, what I tried to do with our team is put everything in perspective and where we are. We're 5-2 in our last 7 games.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We are joined now by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Are you ready for this little? I almost said thawing. This little thawing out process. Little wet grass, little slush, little slog.
Yep. And, what's interesting is, it's a little early for all that, but I'll take it after last week. Last week was really cold. You can just feel golf season's close. I'm a golf guy. Been watching golf on TV. They're on their West Coast swing right now, and so I'm just ready for golf. Ready to get out, swing the sticks, and make hit a couple out of bounds. Try to get a birdie once around. You try to. I'm not a very good golfer, but I love it, and I'm looking forward to it. Today's golf, obviously, I don't think any of the courses would be open. Maybe late this week, but probably not.
No way. Those grounds would get trampled.
Oh, yeah.
You never know. Well, there's some quick drying courses that are like par 3 courses.
Yeah.
You never know. And the ranges might be open, so I don't know. I might get out there and.
Hey, don't you go?
You can always go to Topgolf. You can always go to Topgolf.
Don't go ushering in spring already. We got a couple more chills coming, Sam. Okay,
probably do.
Let's not.
But you can always go to Topgolf if you really want to get that fix. You can always go there, or you can go. I think here in Lincoln now they got an indoor place in South Lincoln where it's kind of like TGL where you're hitting into a video screen or whatever. I've liked watching that.
Yeah,
Tiger.
Just don't fall down.
I know it's weird. It's a little weird, but everybody's been talking about, the NBA versus the NHL, and those sports are awesome. But I'm watching TGL. I'm watching golf. I'm watching Genesis Invitational. I like the LPGA.
Well, I'll probably
Europe, all that stuff.
I'll probably have to work because that's how my Saturdays in Lincoln go. But if I wasn't, like, could we be on the same team for like flag football or something if they did a media deal?
No. Oh, you mean on the spring?
No, yeah, fine. Sam here for not wanting to play with scrubs. He's like,
sure.
No. He's like, no, you're
I think you would be. I think you would be the number one pick. Would
like,
you?
I don't know.
Tim just
Well, I didn't exactly know what you were talking about.
That guy
You don't want me on your
blows.
team. I'm not. You don't want me on your team.
Sam, are you left or right-handed?
Left-handed.
Oh, good. Can you throw?
I don't have. I can. Let's be clear. That
said,
like I don't have really big hands.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a strong arm. That's not the issue. It's more the spiral. You know, like I think so. Kevin Suits is going to be your top media quarterback, I would guess.
Oh yeah, that's slinging Sammy. That's slinging Sammy ball. But don't you think? Wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't you like to know, like, if that's what they wanted media to do, so you could at least give yourself like almost 2 months to get
a little
ready?
runway, a little training period.
No,
he's like, no.
You know what? And I let's be clear. I appreciate that, and I get a laugh out of it. But like, I would not probably be one of the people who participated in that. Like, I don't like that's not what Like, people read me for the words, not for my ability to do any of those things.
So what do you think people are more up in arms
I don't know
about
what
now?
it's gonna be.
The creativity or whatever they're going to try to do on the 26th, or the fact that Nebraska isn't playing Tennessee anymore?
Well, I think on Twitter it's Tennessee, but I think the rank and file fan's going to be disappointed in the spring game thing, because that had become, hey, let's go watch the spring game. And you're there till the third quarter, and then you leave and you get to see some guys. Some people will stay until the very end so they can watch everybody. But I think the spring game thing is going to probably bother rank and file fans more. The Tennessee thing is more of a social media critique. And again, people who know a lot about scheduling or have followed this stuff for a long time understand that, like, what Nebraska did and why they did it is a better rationale than the majority of the reasons why these games don't happen. So I didn't think that was that big of a deal, just objectively speaking. And simultaneously, I think Nebraska's done so many things over the years for the sport of college football.
That's what I'm saying.
That I would describe as character moves. They don't need to feel bad about this. They don't need to feel guilty about this at all.
So, I mean, Sam, the one place I do kind of correlate Tennessee and the spring game is I think Nebraska is sort of giving other programs cover that want to do the same thing. We saw last week, as soon as Nebraska kind of announced that there wasn't going to be a spring game, you saw USC, you saw Texas, you saw Ohio State.
And they knew that was coming. It's not like the coaches don't talk.
All came out right after and said, hey, we're not having a spring game. I think you're going to start to see these types of things for these programs that have games scheduled out 10 years in advance, which I still don't understand why that's necessary in college football, when in college basketball you can figure out a schedule 3 months before the season starts. But I think do you think you're going to start to see some other major programs like Nebraska start to do sort of the same thing and be like, hey, we really don't need to play these games?
In spring games, yeah.
No, I mean the marquee non-cons.
Well, maybe. I mean, I think it depends on the schools, and it depends on the deals they have. I don't think Iowa and Iowa State are necessarily going to stop playing. Although I've heard rumblings that Iowa wouldn't care if Iowa State wanted to stop. I think so. Georgia and Georgia Tech, and Florida State. I think there's arguments to be made for keeping natural rivalries. Nebraska's kind of stuck. And so they got that Oklahoma series, and I think they should cast it off maybe, but they're not going to do that. They played Oklahoma a lot. They've obviously played them those 2 seasons. Years ago, I think 15 years ago, 17 years ago, they signed a deal for 4 Colorado and 4 Oklahoma games. And that was, it is what it is, but that was not something they needed to do at the time, and they did it, and it felt good to do it back then. But People sometimes ask me, well, do you think they should add Kansas? I'm like, no, I don't. I think you have to try to add teams like Tennessee, even though they had to cancel that series. I think it's possible.
I just don't understand why we're kicking our own when, like, we let Oklahoma off the hook and we didn't say a peep. But
I know.
And
I
right,
know.
am I misremembering?
Yeah.
When was that 10? To that what year was that 11, 12?
When they signed the
Are
deal?
you talking about Oklahoma when Oklahoma stopped playing Nebraska in the Big 12?
Yeah, like that was their doing.
I know. No, Nebraska's been character all the way on a lot of this stuff, and I think it's just the moment, and it's social media, and it's, you know, everybody wanted to go to Neyland Stadium. The newsflash, there weren't going to be many Husker fans in that stadium, and they were going to get about 5,000. It wasn't. A, it's not the easiest place to get to, and B, Tennessee, packs the stadium. So, that would have been a cool experience for me, but I would have been one of the chief beneficiaries of that. But that's not. I mean, again, I talked to Damon about this a couple of weeks ago. At that time, they weren't sure because they still wanted the ball to be in Tennessee's court. So I talked to them about it then, and I think there was a clarity about, hey, this is what we have to do based on the renovation. This is how we feel. People forget, obviously, that Nebraska agreed to keep the second Cincinnati game, which, at this point is going to end up being kind of a Nebraska home game. But, they didn't convince Cincinnati to move it from Indianapolis to Kansas City. I think Cincinnati understood that they could make a heck of a lot more money if they did. I think that the game in Indianapolis would have gotten about 25,000, 30,000 fans, whereas this one will get 80. Like, they will pack it. They will fill it out. It'll be almost all Nebraska fans. Cincinnati will realize it's playing a road game, but Cincinnati will make a lot of money.
Yeah,
millions and millions.
What percentage is Nebraska officially going to concede to Cincinnati?
I think the way that this meted out is, and we'll look into it further, but I think it was Cincinnati's home game, so Cincinnati had to agree to give up the home thing. But simultaneously, I think they retained more of the financial.
Yeah, so deal. you just give them like a couple mil.
Well, I think there's a gate, and then so I think Cincinnati pays Nebraska, but I'd have to look into it more. There's a gate, and I think Cincinnati's going to take a portion of that gate, and obviously the Arrowhead Stadium will as well. So Clark Hunt and the Kansas City Chiefs will take some of that as well because they're willing to stage the event. Not long before the NFL season starts.
They can put that cash in escrow when they have to get Mahomes off that $78 million tag in 26.
Right. So I think the way it is Nebraska plays Cincinnati on a Thursday, and it's entirely possible that the following Thursday the Chiefs will host somebody. They like putting Kansas City on opening night. They have the option of putting the Eagles there and having the Eagles host, I don't know, the Lions or something. But my hunch is they will have Kansas City, and they will have Kansas City host the Buffalo Bills. That'll be their opening game. And so Kansas City's going to have to play on a kind of a chewed up field, which, the Chiefs are willing to do to make some money.
Talking with Sam McKewon from Omaha World-Herald. Sam, want to switch gears to Nebraska basketball here. Obviously, Fred Hoiberg and crew in kind of a crucial spot tonight with Michigan, especially coming off, I don't know what else to call it, an embarrassing loss to Penn State.
Sure.
Can Nebraska lose this game tonight and you still feel good about them making the tournament?
Yeah, I think if Nebraska loses tonight and then they beat Minnesota and they beat Ohio State and they beat Iowa, then I think they
need to win out if they lose tonight, basically.
Not necessarily. I think you're going to hear a lot of debate. So if they don't win tonight and they go 19-12, I think they're going to be, in that first four discussion. And then if they go to the Big Ten tournament and they win one, I think they're in. I think, well, I don't know. I think if they get to 20 in the regular season, then I think they're in. If they get to 21 with the regular season plus Big Ten, I think they'll be in. And that's not based on win numbers. That's based on what I think that'll say about their resume. I think Nebraska has perhaps the most interesting resume in college basketball, in the sense that they have some incredibly good wins. They really do. And they have some really not good losses. Like the Rutgers loss, I don't care who they have on their team. By resume, that's not a great loss.
It's a bad loss, yeah.
It's not. And so I know they have talent. And I was there that night, and you tip your cap to Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. They're great. That's not a game Nebraska should have lost. And I think Nebraska knows that too. The USC game isn't a great loss, although I think USC is a little bit better team than Rutgers.
God, I was hoping they would somehow find a way to win yesterday, and they were a decent dog, but I just hate having to cheer. It's just weird. Like, I'm cheering against Xavier. I'm cheering against Oklahoma. I mean, these teams are like 48, 49 in Kim Pom, and you're going to need some of those teams to kind of fall off if Nebraska's in the scenario that you just described a couple of minutes ago. You know, you're going to be comparing a lot of resumes.
I think it helps that they beat Indiana earlier in the season and beat them bad.
Hey, good. Best wishes capping that team.
Yeah.
Isn't that Matt? How would you like to be? That's got to, well, and I say this as a Nebraska basketball fan, but don't have near the tradition, but a guy says he's leaving, and it's like, wait.
And the team says, thank God, we'll start playing. Like, I don't know.
I don't. That's a strange basketball team. They're not Illinois by any stretch, but still.
Oh God.
No, they're not. I think that the thought process at Indiana, and I don't think this is wrong, is that Indiana should be a lot better than just on the bubble. Yeah. Like they should be.
It's preseason top 20 team.
Well, they have the largest. They may have the largest NIL budget, and they're not playing like that. They're playing like they don't. And so, you know, I don't know what exactly they're going to do there, but, you know, Indiana's 7-11 in quad 1 and quad 2 games. Now Nebraska's 9-10. So it's not that far off, but, you know, like Indiana's won some basketball games, and it's going to be really interesting down the stretch. I'm sure our beat writer Wilson Moore will do some, what you call, you know, hidden resumes, because man, is this thing going to get interesting. And there's a feeling that Nebraska is in better shape than others because of some of the road wins.
I agree.
Yeah, the Creighton win is the win that's going to the gift that's going to keep on giving. That's the key one that they got early in the season. I think winning at Oregon's fine. If you were to watch Nebraska basketball and just watch them and say, okay, let's size it up as the eye test. You know, that's an interesting conversation when you get into that, because I do feel like at times, aesthetically, Nebraska is not, you know, the prettiest team to watch. And that's an area where I will be curious to see how it sort of progresses. Nebraska does have some great wins. I think at times they can be a tough watch. and there might be some other teams that people are looking at and saying, that's a lot more enjoyable basketball team if they played their best, quote unquote. Would, like Drake. Now Drake is in a unique
position.
It's
a big win for them yesterday on the road.
It was. Now, Bradley must win the Missouri Valley tournament in order to make it. Their net ranking just don't make it possible for them to make the run. And so now, if Bradley does that, and then Drake. So you got to look at bid fees too. You got to start looking at all those things. You got to start looking at, you know, who's going to steal a bid? Who's that going to knock out? St. Mary's is gold. They're already in. San Francisco is not in. San Francisco could come and steal that thing in the conference tournament. And then all of a sudden, you know, you got Gonzaga and St. Mary's and San Francisco. So, like, so many things are going to happen. People cannot predict this yet. And if I were Nebraska, I'd get to 20 in the regular season. Do not assume that anything less than that's going to happen, because we have not even gotten to the bid thieves yet, and there could be 5 of them. That's not an exaggeration. There could be multiple bid thieves. Like the West Coast Conference could have.
How would you like to beat Gonzaga right now? That resume is not good.
It isn't, but they're going to make it. They'll be in, I think. There's a lot left to talk about here. Oklahoma got to win. Like, again, now this is me talking. I said this last year too. I'd put Villanova in the tournament. I would. Not everybody agrees with that statement. Like, I would. Villanova is a banked-in Stephen Ashworth 3 from being in the tournament now, and I would put them in. But, you know, I have a lot more respect for the Big East than some other people do. A lot of people have no respect for that league. I mean, they just don't have it. It's a 4-bid league. I'm like, are you kidding me? No way. That's a way better basketball league than it's given credit for. But I could see Villanova missing. I could see Xavier missing the tournament. Xavier must beat Creighton. I think they have to. So, you know, there's a lot still out there to look for, and Nebraska has to basically do as much as it can to keep ahead of some of these other teams.
Sam, let me ask you, a couple of weeks ago, and it turns out it came true, which I didn't want it to. I said, I'm not so worried about Nebraska moving up. At that time, they were 8th. I said, I'm more worried about who's behind running them down from behind. And lo and behold, here comes Indiana. Ohio State, I'm still not sure who looked atrocious yesterday. So I don't know who they are, but they still have Nebraska coming up. So, like, that will play itself out. Is there a team or two that's on the heels or behind that has your attention to run Nebraska down?
Are you talking about the Big Ten?
The standings, correct.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. I think Nebraska's schedule's a little bit easier. I mean, after today, they're going to play a reeling Ohio State, Minnesota, which lost to,
Minnesota has 4 road wins in the conference.
I know. Well, they have talent. They have one of the 5 best players in the league, and anytime that happens, you can have a night. And they're all seniors, and they're kind of playing for their coach. I think we almost left
we almost left him for dead.
Yeah. So right now, Nebraska and Indiana are tied. Nebraska has the tiebreaker. Then you have Ohio State. Then you have Rutgers. Rutgers has a tiebreaker over Nebraska. If Nebraska loses tonight, they're 7-10. They're tied with Rutgers. Iowa's a little bit behind that. Nebraska would have to beat Iowa in order to own that tiebreaker. USC is 6-10. USC has a tiebreaker over Nebraska. Then you have Minnesota below it. So the real question here is, if Nebraska wins tonight, it puts itself almost in a different tier, because you have to feel good about Nebraska winning one more down the stretch, and getting to at least 9 and 11. So that would put them maybe in a tier above Iowa and Minnesota. But we'll see what happens. Like, if they lose tonight, they are now 7-10, behind Indiana for a minute, tied with Ohio State, tied with Rutgers, and we'll see what Iowa does. So all those teams could potentially chase them down. And going up is hard. They actually have a tiebreaker over Illinois and Oregon, but those two teams are a game and a half up of Nebraska, and it's going to be hard to catch those teams, and they can't catch, or they won't catch. Let's just be honest. They won't catch Purdue, UCLA. They can't catch Maryland. Maryland has 2 over Nebraska, Wisconsin, Michigan State. So I would say that, right now, let's see. Yes, Nebraska is, I think, the 9 seed, and that's about as good as they're going to do. I don't think they're going to get above Illinois and Oregon. But guess what? Being the 9 seed in the Big Ten will get you in the tournament. The question is there going to be any teams that are below that 9 seed that get in? And the team that is most likely to do that is Indiana. And it would be a neat story. And it's time for that. It's time, obviously, I think Mike Woodson agrees. It's time for him to retire and move into a different phase of his career as a consultant or whatever he wants to do. He's had a great career. But Indiana making it in would be a good story, and people, that is a talented team. It's a more talented team than Nebraska. And if they make it in, they never know. They could do some dangerous stuff.
Sam, what do you do with Purdue? The metrics love them. My eyeballs don't. They've lost 4 in a row, but they're still hanging on between like 10 and 15 and KenPom and net ranking. Like, what do you do with Purdue?
I think they're coming back a little. They're regressing, so to speak, back to the mean. It won't surprise me if Wisconsin does the exact same thing. Obviously, Wisconsin.
Now that's a team you watch, and it's like how?
Yeah, how have they accumulated what they have?
An Omaha Central grad has a lot to do with how.
Yeah.
I think he's the biggest reason. But and I'm not trying to knock Wisconsin. What I would say about both them, not so much Purdue, but I would say about Wisconsin is they're the wrong 12 seed away from getting knocked out in the first round, just like last year.
Did you watch the last 5 minutes of that game at all?
Against Oregon?
I did.
It was incredible. How they did not want to win.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Wisconsin, and this is not evident when Wisconsin plays Nebraska. This is the key, because Wisconsin's run Nebraska off the court 3 of the last 5 games or whatever.
I'm just talking about inbounding the ball, though, Sam.
I know.
3
Wisconsin
times.
Struggles athletically. They struggle with teams like Michigan State, like Oregon, not necessarily like Purdue, because Purdue isn't super. Wisconsin is the wrong 12 seed away from getting knocked out in the first round. A couple years ago, they were 3. They play Iowa State with all those guys, and some of those guys have left, but Iowa State is fast and tough and athletic, and Wisconsin struggles with that. And so they struggled with Oregon at the end of that game because Oregon is athletic. And so, I think Purdue is going to regress a little bit to the mean. They depend so much on those 2 guys, Smith and Lawyer. I've heard that Trey Kaufman-Wren's going to be first team All Big Ten.
I don't see it. I don't. Somebody tweeted that out the other day, and I'm like,
stats thing.
There's no way.
That'd just be a stats thing. That's all that would be.
You
can't
leave.
Well, he's got good numbers.
You can't leave Golden and Wolf off.
Danny Wolf will be on. He'll be a first teamer.
Okay, then who's getting booted? Because I don't
think there'll be 2 Michigan players.
Tanji's on. No, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Tanji's on. Braden Smith's on. If you pick a Michigan guy,
so Wolf or Golden.
Wolf.
I mean, you gotta. I'm not gonna lobby for Bryce, but I do think he's in the.
Oh, no question.
He's in the hyphenated last name.
Oh yes.
Discussion with with Smith, Bryce.
Bryce Williams should be there.
I mean, give me another surefire out of those 3. Like, if you make first team All Big Ten this year, that will be a lofty goal. Because you would think Queen would have to go somewhere, wouldn't he? So you don't think that Rutgers has won enough for Bailey?
Well, yeah, I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know.
It's going to be hard.
I don't have to decide. I think Wilson Moore, is one of the voters. I don't know. Like, I think that's a challenging conversation to have. I know in football you'd go with the numbers and you wouldn't give it that much of a thought. How does Michigan State, if they win the conference
unless you play wide receiver at
Michigan,
unless you play wide receiver at Michigan State like Reed, and then you just kind of get in because you had the good. Not that I remember.
I think that somebody from Michigan State needs to be on the first team. I don't know who that is. I mean, their stats are so evenly deployed that it's kind of challenging to figure out who it should be.
But if they win the league, it'd be pretty tough to leave somebody off.
In my opinion, but you never know. Martinelli at Northwestern, he's probably not going to make the cut. I would put Ace Bailey above Martinelli, for example.
It's gonna be
I think Ace Bailey's a much better player than Nick Martinelli. So,
if you got 30 teams in your league, you should have more than 5 spots. I don't know if 30 is an exaggeration,
that's a good point.
But shoot, man, get down to 5 is tough.
Hey, they got 30 teams in the NBA, still only got 5 All-Pros.
That's right. I would not put 2 Purdue players on there. I don't really think that's justified. Again, you'd just be putting a guy on there for nice stats. So Purdue's not going to win the conference championship. They're going to finish 3rd or 4th, actually. And so I don't think it's realistic to put 2 guys from Purdue on there. I would put Bryce Williams there. I would. But, they got to make their own decision. It will be a really good all-freshman team. And then there's Dawson Garcia. And, again, there's a deal where I would say that Dawson Garcia is, he's a better player than Trey Kaufman-Wren. He made a choice. A laudable choice, in my opinion, to spend his last 3 seasons at Minnesota. And he didn't have to. He could have gone a lot of places. But that guy's a good basketball player, and I So I would be more inclined to put a Dawson Garcia on that list and say, you know what? He's one of the 5 best players in the league, and it doesn't matter that his team around him isn't very good. It's not his fault. So, that's probably, I'd go Garcia, Williams, Smith, Tanji, and who am I missing? I can't. Wolf. Yep.
Oh,
that's probably what I would do.
There you go. That's Sam McKewon.
If it wasn't Jay Nakins, from Michigan State, but that's probably my 5. That would be my 5. Yeah.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam,
good stuff, Sam. Appreciate
it as always.
Take care.
More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Live, that's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage, where we've got.
I like our music.
Yeah, we got some new bump music.
I was just thinking this one might be my favorite.
I'd have to hear them all, but I like this one.
So far, so good. We
Yeah.
like having things change up a little bit here. We're talking about.
I like not getting cut off. That's what I like.
I also like not getting cut off, whether it's in traffic or on the air here.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Tell
The
you
digital
what,
air.
Did not miss driving on the Interstate West. I much prefer going east.
Why?
It just seems like it's better driving. I don't know what it is.
I've never really thought about it that way.
So, I mean, this guy, I've been to Des Moines, Iowa City, Minnesota,
Yeah.
Wisconsin. I mean, it seems like I go that way a fair amount.
Yeah. Well,
much better than driving in
big Iowa
through
guy. People forget that about
Western
you.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's not fun. And was rerouted.
You have some construction out there?
Some big accident. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But I was rerouted.
Well, that's no good.
And for once, I had no idea where I was.
Why don't you guys just all carpool out there together?
Everybody was coming from someplace different.
Mm.
Sty cut through Crete, which is how I ended up having to come back.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they sent you all over.
And it's like, I feel bad for people that don't have
the GPS.
Yeah. Like a Navi.
Yeah, I'd be in trouble.
And it's dark.
Especially when it's dark and when I'm out west or somewhere I don't have any like bearings for.
But apparently it was a big one.
Accident?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I came out somewhere on Northwest 48th Street.
Did you stop by Doane?
So it would have taken me that way if I had gone a little further south.
Yeah. They've got, for NAI school, they've got incredible facilities.
I've been there. Been kicked out of a party there.
Recently?
No. I was in college. It was some sand beach bash thing.
No, sometime in the last, I think about 10 years.
They're like, sir, you got to go.
You got to keep stepping.
There'll be no fighting here. I'm like, I didn't start it.
Much like Billy Joel in the fire?
No, I was with my boy Barnes, Corey.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and sometime in the last about 10 years, they, I think, rebuilt everything down there, and the facilities are incredible.
Yeah.
Terrific NAI facilities.
I'm all for facilities.
Yeah.
It's not even an arms race anymore as much as
it's cost doing business.
Yeah, and I think the facilities portion at Nebraska is cool, which is why I like the fact that they're trying to, what kind of people I think aren't understanding, and I kind of boiled it down to not playing this team versus not playing this team, or this spring game versus the ability to generate revenues for the seat renovations and what's ultimately really going to give back to the fan base is not even being allowed to play out because we're too busy bitching and moaning about each baby step in order to get to the end game, which is not only to win games, but you need the stadium done too.
Well,
which is really the biggest reward for the fan base, other than winning football games.
Yeah, that is the biggest carrot out there.
They're literally trying to do multiple things at once.
The biggest carrot out there is, and really the only thing from an infrastructure standpoint that Nebraska is missing is stadium upgrades, right? They got the facilities done. They've got their finances in place and everything. The stadium is kind of this big, I don't want to say albatross because that makes it sound too negative, but it's the thing that is the most out of date with everything else that they're doing. And so I don't know if people just have a hard time.
Do you know the people that say, well, if I'm going to watch them not play Tennessee, I at least want to be comfortable?
I have heard those people.
Okay. Just getting it all out there
and just putting it all out on. So I do think we have a hard time occasionally keeping perspective on things where it's like, hey,
the world,
this is the big picture. Or maybe we just don't see the forest for the trees. You know, we see, hey, there's this tree right in front of me. I don't really like that. I don't like this one over here either. But you don't like take the 30,000 foot view and be like, oh, that's a really nice looking forest we have there. We get caught up in, oh, well, there's a broken branch over here and these leaves are kind of dying. That's not that pretty. Where like this is an $800 million. I believe that's the latest number I've heard. I don't know if you know that. That's a little north of 3/4 of a billion. That's an expensive stadium project.
You got to watch Paradise.
Why?
They dropped billion a couple of times in there.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's very integral in the show.
Okay.
Make sure you check that out. I'm telling you, 6 episodes.
Just
51 minutes apiece.
Power through?
Yeah.
51. Man, those look kind of long episodes.
48 to 51.
Okay. I'm just saying that's like 6 whole hours, basically. 5, I guess. 5 hours.
It's a night. It's the middle of a night.
Yeah. Some of us use that time to sleep, DB.
I get it.
The amount of time in the day gets shorter when you sleep for some of it.
Yeah.
Not that you're familiar with that concept at all.
Yeah, I'll sleep in the next couple of weeks.
You're gonna go to sleep when you're dead.
Well, that too. Maybe sooner rather than later.
Well, let's not get too morbid here.
Be all right.
You're only 50. You're all right.
Yeah. Good point.
But no, I think we lose perspective of we get so caught up in the minutia of the day to day, right? And that's part of being, it's part of being a fan. That's part of the.
I just think we like being upset.
I don't.
That's fine. I know you feel like I'm talking to you.
No, I mean,
as a fan,
not on this one. I don't think you're talking to me. I don't know if we like being upset. I think some people do. I think some people like using things to try and rile up the fan base. I think that's true.
Yeah.
I also think I don't know if they want to be upset or if they just don't have other voices telling them why this is a good idea as opposed to just a thing that's being taken away from them, right? And I understand that's sort of the argument I was making for keeping the spring game. But I think the spring game has less of an impact on direct wins and losses than taking away a Tennessee and replacing them with an Akron or whatever, right? Like I understand both can be seen through a similar lens, but the spring game has less real-world consequences for playing it, I think, especially if you don't put it on TV because you take the tampering issue out of it for the most part, right? They're not going to let some rando in with a video camera. That's not a thing. Like, yeah, you got your phone, whatever. If you want to scout guys off of cell phone video, like, go for it. Like, more power to you, bud. But I don't think that's as big of an issue in terms of real-life wins and losses as, hey, why are we helping out an SEC team that also has playoff aspirations that they are only playing 8 regular season SEC games where playing Nebraska and getting a win, if Nebraska's any good, can actually really help them out.
Yeah, it's the risk reward.
Yeah, it's totally out of whack for me. The risk reward for the spring game makes a lot of sense to me. You're not risking, I don't think, that much, and you're giving the fans a reward. For Tennessee, the risk is, okay, you take another loss against a power conference team, possibly, and you risk elevating another program that you might be in contention with. Because let's say at the end of the day, Nebraska and Tennessee both end up with nine wins, right? That's not crazy. That's not out of the question. But if you go 9 wins and you say, hey, Nebraska's 13 and Tennessee is 12, you know what's really easy to look at if you're the committee? Oh, well, Tennessee beat Nebraska. Head up. Really easy. Yeah. And that's not a far-fetched scenario. It's really not. And so even if it's not that specific and that linear, that's the kind of thing we're talking about here. You're helping elevate a conference that doesn't want to play by the same rules everybody else does in the SEC. You're doing them a solid by giving them a game. Make them go play somebody else. If they want to go play somebody, go play the ACC. Go play the Big 12. If you're the Big 10, you don't need to do the SEC any favors.
1,000%.
Like you're the Big 10. If you think you're the big boy at the table, which the Big 10 clearly does, and they're fighting the SEC for upper hand supremacy in the world of college football. I know they like to pretend like they play nice and they're in this together. Each of them want to be the top dog. Oh, yeah. Like, make no mistake.
Like that's going to come to a head here
as soon as they feel like they've killed off everyone else.
Sooner rather than later.
As soon as they feel like they've killed off the rest of the field, they will come for each other. That's how this works. Right? The partnership exists only as long as it's beneficial to both of them. Yep. As soon as they put the Big 12 and the ACC far enough in their rear view.
Watch what happens if the SEC gets locked out of another national title game.
Or doesn't get their 4, right? Let's see what happens when auto bids are locked in and they get 4 apiece. Then they're going to start fighting. It's like, oh, we got the thing we both wanted. Now who's the best? Mm-hmm. Who's the top dog? That's a thing that's going to happen sooner rather than later. You don't want to start handing out favors now. That's DB.
Especially in 2026.
Especially in 2026, 2027. That's coming to a head sooner rather than later. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Live.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and presented by our friends over at Centris Federal Credit Union. You know, DB was talking about he's got to figure some car stuff out. Man, he's got to go over to centrisfcu.org. They've got you covered. If you're looking for a new vehicle, they can get you set up with a car loan. Get to centrisfcu.org and talk to one of their experts about the options they have to get you into that new vehicle, federally insured by NCUA. DB,
what's it?
You know, I'm watching state wrestling from afar over the weekend, and obviously we see our guy Tyson Terry go undefeated, do the historic 4-peat in the heavyweight division, never been done before, and then
169-0.
And then we find out my man's been wrestling on a torn ACL.
Yeah, so that was going to be a point of contention. His dad had a party at celebratory party.
Yeah.
At the Viking ship Saturday night. And the whole time, and I get it, right? But the whole time, because when TNT first got hurt in football, it was like amongst the small circle, it was like the shot heard around the world.
Yeah.
Like, oh, shutting them down. And with young people, you haven't really been diagnosed yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, I think he did his ACL. So you have to, respectfully, it's just like, hey, how are we doing? Think you just didn't want to come out and say, and this is me and Ryan, right? This is a guy that,
you've known for
Saturday we're thinking about, hey, breakfast at Village Inn, right? But it's like, you don't just come out and say that.
Yeah.
So I get why, if that's what they thought this whole time or knew, you would play it close to the vest.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Because, they originally said, no, it's not torn.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it progressively got worse, if it was torn the whole time. Either way, it doesn't.
It's not your place to say.
Or, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just not. But I 100% understand playing it close to the vest.
So I have to imagine, this is just my very rudimentary understanding of ACLs and injuries and stuff like that. I have to imagine it was torn the whole time because you actually do get a little more leeway on being able to do stuff on it if it's a total clean tear. Right? If it's partially torn or if it's strained or something, it'd be almost impossible to do
that's accurate.
Anything on it, right? Or if it's a clean tear, there's instability, but there's not really any pain.
And a lot of it probably hinged on what the meniscus was like during his time off.
Yes.
Because the meniscus is kind of what makes you hurt.
That's what I mean with a clean tear, right?
Right.
If it's because sometimes you do an ACL and you got damage to the meniscus, you got damage to the PCL, to the MCL, to the LCL, like the whole thing, right? A lot of times, though, when you get the ACL, it's just the ACL, and that's when you've got a decent amount of leeway on what you want to do with it. I mean, I played against this dude in college who was a baller who just never got it fixed. It was a clean tear. Didn't bother him anything. He threw a brace on during games, so he had some stability.
That's Remington. Guy, there have been a lot of, I won't say a lot. There have been some guys to do it.
And if it's clean, it's not.
And be okay.
But it is an unbelievable achievement to tear an ACL in October and then in February run through the heavyweight division for the fourth time. That's unbelievable.
And they took him into deep waters on Friday.
That semifinal was unbelievable.
Yeah, so guys in the wrestling community know. Those guys know each other really well. Wrestled.
Well, that's a D1 wrestler.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
And they were so, I talked about officiating. I get it. And I'm not here to lobby one way or another. I mean, maybe there were some times where you felt like you could have got some stall calls. But I think that's kind of where you had to take Tyson.
Yeah.
Is you had to really get him into deep waters. I don't know who did the interview after, but maybe it was Cody or maybe it was our guys. I can't remember who had it, but I mean, he could barely breathe.
Yeah.
And this was a fair amount of time after the match. I mean, you could just tell, he hadn't gone past the second period.
Yeah.
And so the 2-1 was, we were almost getting ready to get into the rules we talked about with Ron. And coin flips where it's like, and at the very end, it was I'm not going to say ticky-tack. I thought he could have got, it could have been scored differently at the end of regulation too. But the whistle blew.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was inadvertent, but I don't know. I didn't get a
didn't get in the weeds on it?
No.
Yeah.
Because I just think, number one, you just know where you're weak, right? So I lack objectivity for one.
Sure.
And officiating is hard.
Especially in wrestling.
So I certainly wasn't going to stir the pot because those that remember a couple years ago with my man, it doesn't take much.
Sure.
To kind of set the thing off. So just kept it chill.
Yeah.
And move on. But, there were some fantastic individual performance. What Prep was able to do as a team.
Yeah. What they finished total-wise?
Well, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
It was 2. I don't remember
So I thought
I don't remember the final number.
Yeah.
But the 50-some-odd point lead after day one at 94-5.
Yeah.
I was like, how's that going to work? And I mean, Miller South is like at 50 points. This is day one score.
Yeah.
And they're like in sixth place.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Like, how'd that happen?
Incredible depth. I mean, there are some teams there were some talented teams in terms of depth, but again, I found myself just being captivated by Ziola.
Yeah.
Right? It was, I tweeted out a picture. I had to watch it 1,000 times and slow it down frame by frame.
For Ziola?
Just to get the picture that I wanted, where when I talk about the low-hanging fruit is, well, yeah, with arms that long, like you should be able, you should be a pick. You should be primed for those picks.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've said all year about him the last 2 years, it's not just that. It's controlling the head from above. I mean, actually controlling the head and still being vulnerable on your lower body as the other wrestler.
Yeah.
You just don't typically have to guard against both at the same time.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Because in the head down position where you may be thinking, okay, underhooks or something like that, you have to be cognizant because you're bent over. You have to be cognizant of getting swept at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was controlling the head with the arm, and he did it like 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
Watching it with other wrestlers, it's just like, and he could do it. He can let you up, scramble, back points, score. And then it was wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
It's incredible. 4-timer and Lordson is going to Kearney.
I was going to say.
Coach Hill doing work.
Got Kyler Lawrenson, got his 4-peat as well. Didn't want to leave him out by any means, even though Tyson got a lot of the run, and deservedly so. I don't think I told you. I actually I ran into Ryan on Friday. I was having lunch at DJ's with our guy DP, Denny. Yep. And Ryan.
He's a good dude, isn't he?
Yeah, and Ryan comes up and he's like, "Oh, you're the guy that does the show with Damon." And I was like, "Yep, that's me."
Is he like you thought?
I really didn't have any expectations. Like I guess I hadn't thought too much about what he'd be like as a person, because I just never thought I'd run into him.
Little tough squatty body.
Yeah, no, like he's pretty yoked up. Like you can see it.
He was telling me he was in the booth with Scobie, another one of my buddies. Brody wrestles at Bangton. Tough loss late. I didn't have the heart to text because Brian revs high too.
Yeah.
And weird, they were in the box together upstairs Friday night. I was like, they both could have some furniture moving up in that, in that deal.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to Matt Hladik from the Spun, talk a little college hoops on the national scale here on Hurrdat Sports Live.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Rice brings it up for Indiana. Coleman's in the ball game for Purdue. They throw the ball over to Galloway. With Gallo down low to Malik Renew. He slams it home.
3-point attempt for Scott here in the near corner. That's good. Aaron Scott puts St. John's ahead 64-59.
Screen from Broom. Gets it to Janai. Wide open three. Bang! Hogarth the trailer. Sends it right side. Three is up and three. Oh! There! That was Chris Magnon with a triple to give Vanderbilt the lead.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by Matt Hladik from the Spun, covering college basketball. What's going on, Matt? How are you?
What's up, fellas? How you guys doing?
We are hanging in there. Just a couple of hosts arguing about conference strength and who's good and who isn't. And, man, I know we say this every year, Matt, but it seems like the gray or the minutia, it seems to be a little greater this year, further out, right? The pool is bigger. Agree or disagree that it's a little more muddled in the middle, in the back end than normal?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a few teams kind of standing out at the top. I would say that the two best teams right now, I think going into March are Auburn and Duke. But I don't necessarily think, I think they're clearly the two best right now. I don't necessarily think it's a situation where, either one of them looks like they can't be beaten in March, especially with, you see how deep the SEC is. There's some other contenders there. As good as Duke is, they haven't necessarily been challenged in the ACC, so you wonder what might happen if a team gets them in the tournament and it's a close game late. I think that beyond that, when you look around the country, there's so many good teams that it could make for a really interesting month of March because – there's a bunch of schools that I could see getting to the second weekend, maybe even making a run to the Elite Eight or getting knocked out early, depending on what their matchup looks like. So the bubble is really weird this year. It's a fight between, a lot of mediocrity. And I think that even in the middle, there's a lot of good teams, but there's not, a lot of separating factors between them.
Right. Let me give you the middle as kind of an example of what I was talking about. And I would probably, I don't know what you think about Florida, but I'll come back to them. I would put them towards the Duke, Auburn more than I would like the Houston
for sure
D group. But so like in the middle, there are these teams that I kind of I ask about all the time. Like I want to start with 3 in particular: St. John's, Missouri, and Maryland. Where when I look at some of these teams and kind of how they're built, and I get it, Maryland is kind of the outlier of the bunch, but they're in the Big Ten, and I think they're really good. at times. I just want to know, like, what's the difference between if I give you two teams that have pretty good narratives and in St. John and Missouri, and then I give you Maryland, who's it's seemingly still flying under the national radar.
Well, I think one of the things with Maryland is that there's people kind of wondering when are they going to take that next step. They only got to the second weekend once under Mark Turgeon. Cameron Willard has not gotten to the second weekend with Maryland or Seton Hall yet. So I think there's kind of that factor to go in. Also, I think a lot of people are starting to know about Derek Queen. They know what type of force he is and future NBA player, 5-star freshman. But I think that the guards at Maryland are kind of lurking a little bit under the radar where people are not necessarily sure. They don't know yet how good they can be, with Gillespie, Rice, and Miguel. But I think that Maryland's a team that they have high-end talent, and they could be a factor in the tournament depending on, matchups and how they play on a given day. When you look at the other two teams you mentioned, Missouri obviously coming out of a really strong SEC, picked up a great win a couple weekends ago against Alabama. They are a team that can get deep. Dennis Gates has done a great job of turning that program around from what it was with a disastrous 0-18 year in conference play.
And they're more of a sum of the parts, though, right? And I get Gil, but more of a sum of the parts team.
They are. Obviously they have Mark Mitchell, who's played well, transferred from Duke, and they have talent, but there's not an overwhelming star or stars that you have to be aware of where you're like, whoa, this is, a team that has, a future NBA stud or somebody that is a marked man, so to speak. But they are more of a sum of their parts. And again, they've been tested in the SEC and have shown up and put together some nice wins there. Lastly, St. John's out in, this neck of the woods in New York. It's kind of a vintage Rick Pitino team in terms of how they defend. They really defend at a high level. It's not a vintage Rick Pitino team in terms of how they shoot the three. They don't shoot it very well. Now, if they shoot it the way they did against UConn yesterday, where they're 40-something%, they're tough to beat by anybody. But if they shoot typically, in the low 30s like they do, it's going to come down to who they play in the tournament, because I think there'll be a good matchup for, say, a Big Ten team or, an ACC team or certain Big 12 teams. But if they play an SEC team that can get up and down and score, it might be a little tougher for them to advance.
Matt, so I'm glad you brought up St. John's because, first of all, it's a team that I hate. But so I got to ask you because the shooting is one concern, right? Mm-hmm. Where you just look at it and you go, oh, man, like that could be tough if they get into an unfamiliar environment in March and they just don't shoot the ball very well. But the other thing I wonder is like, okay, let's say they get, I don't know, like a WCC crew or a Mountain West crew or something that's not used to how they play basketball. And St. John's is really dependent on the way they defend on a pretty loose whistle. Because if you have a crew in there that's like, hey, every time you're down the floor, you're fouling, because that's the case, right? Like, I don't know what that looks like in the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament if they're not allowed to play the way the Big East allows them to play. Does that make sense?
Sure, and I think you've seen that in the past with certain teams from different conferences. Officiating comes into play when you're getting guys on the whistle that you don't normally see and don't know you and know your personnel from during the year. The Big East is a physical conference, always has been, it always will be. St. John's is a really physical defensive team. They remind me a little bit of the Houston teams that we've seen in terms of how they defend and how they play, and they're not overly great offensively. They also remind me a little bit, I'm a Rutgers alum, so they remind me a little bit of a step up from like the Rutgers teams that made the tournament a couple of years ago, where they were really based on defense, but they weren't great shooting the ball, but they were very physical. It will be interesting because St. John's, they have talent, but it's not a crazy deep team. And I think if they have some type of foul trouble, it could have impact them, particularly down low if an Ejiofor gets in foul trouble against a quality opponent. So that is an interesting storyline that you may not think of, but could factor in come March.
So, my bad.
No, go ahead.
So let me ask you something about, because you mentioned Houston, and You know, Cryer is one of the better tough shot takers and makers in all of basketball. But what bugs me about them is exactly what I saw Saturday against Iowa State. You know, Iowa State, top 2 scorers. Arguably your third best player spends 3/4 of that game in foul trouble. And it was still a struggle to pull away. Teams that don't shoot it like that outside, well, they've got 2 now, I think, can shoot better than 40%. So it's weird for me to say that don't shoot it as well, but that are limited offensively, that go through those offensive lows, that play at a slow pace. Do you look at Houston any differently, the way that Iowa State was able to somehow stay in that game being so punchless?
It's not necessarily I look at them differently just off that game, though the points you raise are definitely fair. I look at them a little differently just because of this is the way they've always been, and I look at their NCAA tournament resume. Now, they did get to the Final Four in 2021. They got to the Elite Eight the following year, lost to Nova. So it's not like they haven't had deep runs. Last year, if Shed doesn't get hurt, they might get beyond Duke in the Sweet 16, and they would have had a good chance to get to the Final Four playing NC State. But it's not like they're incapable of making deep runs, but it always trips them up. The lack of offense always trips them up at some point, because there's going to be a game in the NCAA tournament. If you want to win 6 games and win a title, you're going to have to outscore somebody. And it's not just going to be able to be won strictly on defense. The year that Virginia won it all, they outscored some people and they were able to win with their offense as the deeper they got into that tournament. And it's not like again, you said they have a couple of guys that can shoot the ball, Cryer and Sharp, a couple others. They're about 40% as a team from 3-point range. So it's not like they're, laying bricks, but that style they play, they have a tendency to play low scoring games, to get into some of those lulls, like you said. And I think that doesn't bode well for winning a national championship. I think your ceiling there is, 3 wins, maybe 4 Elite Eight, Final Four.
So, Matt, as we look at kind of the teams that we feel like can win a national championship, where's the line for you? Okay, so I'm going to read off a handful. You tell me when to stop, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Can Duke win a national championship?
Yes.
Auburn?
Yes.
Houston?
I say no.
Okay. Florida?
Yes.
Tennessee?
I think yes. I know there's always concern over how they play in the tournament. They've had some loss of years, but I think they have the talent to win one. Yes.
Alabama?
Yes.
Iowa State?
I'm going to say no.
Texas Tech?
No.
Michigan State?
No.
Okay, so we got to what, about 5 teams?
Yes, and I'm trying to think if there's any more that you could add in there. I don't know. And it's possible I'm selling a couple short, but I just look at the teams that are going to have to win, 6 games and get all the way through. And I think that those top teams from the SEC and Duke are probably your best options. And then Houston, listen, I know, like, for example, because we write about it all the time at the Spun, the BPI loves Houston. Mm-hmm. They had Houston as the favorite to win the national championship up until, I think, 2 days ago, and they still have them as either the second or third best odds.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
They're third in KenPom right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, the predictive measures love Houston. Mm-hmm. I just have so many doubts about how they're going to play in the tournament and them winning, getting all the way through. So I admit I'm a little biased because I'm going off past results, but that's just kind of the way I look at it. And you mentioned Michigan State. I'm pretty familiar with them, watching a lot of Big Ten. This is probably Tom Izzo's best team in a few years, but I think they're a cut below national title good. I think they're second weekend, Final Four, maybe depending on matchups again, but they're not national championship good.
Who would be your bucket getter for them?
That's a tough, it kind of rotates to me. I mean, obviously, the way that Jace Richardson.
I'll say, is it Jace now?
It might be.
That's funny how in love they were with Fears a month ago.
I think it probably, just because I do know the way Tom Izzo likes to trust those guards, I think it probably is still Fears. But Jace Richardson, I mean, is obviously looking like one of the better freshmen in the country, that isn't, doesn't get the attention of a Cooper Flagg or, Dylan Harper. I think it's probably still, Fears or Akins, but it might be Jace Richardson, because if you look at their scorers, and I just pulled it up to be sure, I mean, they have, I think 10 or 12 guys that are averaging 10 guys, I think averaging 5 or more, but nobody's above 13.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is the concern. They have plenty of talent, plenty of options and depth, but if they need a bucket, which you're going to need buckets in the NCAA tournament, who do you go to?
So that's why I don't know what to do with Michigan State, right? Mm-hmm. Because Jace Richardson all of a sudden kind of changes, I think, the math on that team, because I do think he's more capable in a way that a lot of the other – because a lot of times a balanced offense is not always as good of a thing as we like to think it is.
Right.
Because we go, okay, yeah, you've got a lot of dudes that can do a little bit. You have one dude that can do a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And that's typically what we see win in the NCAA tournament. So I don't – full disclosure, like Jace Richardson has really changed the math for me on Michigan State, and I don't totally know what to do with it yet.
Well, that he can get to any spot on the floor.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, those are the guys that will win, like can carry you for 6 games in a tournament, and they were already pretty good, right? What I think is funny, right, about this year's team in particular, and it goes to DB's like middle class comment, right? Mm-hmm. We got to call it 6 tops teams that can win the tournament. How big is the number that can make a Final Four? Because I think I could make an argument for about 40.
That's where it's really deep.
Talking about the middle.
Yeah.
Yes. That's where it's very deep, I think, because you look at there was a bunch of teams, like all those teams that you rattled off, the ones I said no to, they could make a Final Four. There's a lot more than just that group. I would say off the top of my head, I'm just going around the leagues. In the ACC, obviously Duke can get to a Final Four. I'm not sure about Clemson or Louisville. In the Big East, I think St. John's can get to a Final Four depending on what type of matchups they get in the tournament. And Creighton can be dangerous for a long run depending on how that offense is, and they have a guy with a Kalkbrenner in the middle. In the Big Ten, I think Michigan can get to a Final Four. I think Michigan State can get to a Final Four. There's a couple other teams right below that I'm not sure about.
I hate to say it, but they're the Vanderbilt of the Big Ten because of the way they play, and they're a tough scout. I may have to give UCLA some run. I was down on, kind of how that situation was handled from a leadership standpoint. They're an interesting matchup because of the way that they play.
They definitely are, and we've seen them go through stretches where they look like they're going to miss the tournament, and we've seen them go through stretches where they look like they're going to be a second or third weekend team. Mm-hmm. And I think if they catch that second type of performance next month, they could be very dangerous, because it's not like they don't have talent. It's not like they don't have the experience of playing in these big games. So I think when you're looking around the Big Ten, I think those teams are certainly capable of going deep. Purdue's a little bit down this year. I wouldn't necessarily totally discount them because of Matt Painter. But then you look, in the Big 12, I think there's a bunch of Big 12 teams that can get to a Final Four. I think, obviously Texas Tech, I think Houston. I wouldn't necessarily discount Arizona. Iowa State can get to a Final Four. Kansas is really, dumping. They're kind of really dropping right now.
Hey, stay right there. Let me ask. Of these two teams with outstanding coaches, who are you more apt to give the benefit of the track record to, given the current state of their teams? UConn or Kansas?
It's a great question. It's a really good question. I think it's funny because I think the coaching, coming into the year, those might have been the top 2 coaches in the sport. I might give the coaching edge the benefit of the doubt to Danny Hurley, because I think he's still the best in the business, but I think his team, the roster, it's not as good as it was the last 2 years. It's not, bereft of talent, but it doesn't have the horses that he had. I might give the higher ceiling in the tournament if they get things figured out and wake up to Kansas, because I think Kansas is a little bit more of a high-end talent on their roster, and they showed it earlier in the season. It's just kind of fallen apart here. So it wouldn't surprise me if both of those teams are out in the first weekend. I might slightly lean Kansas has the potential to go on a deeper run. That could obviously, that opinion could backfire on me, but that's where I'm at right now. And, a few days before March.
All right, let me give you 3 fringe, and we're panicking here in the Midwest over how Nebraska is going to finish. But let me give you a couple of teams in similar neighborhoods, and you can break the 3 down. I'll give you Xavier, Oklahoma, and Nebraska.
Oklahoma is an interesting case because where they are, they're 4-10 in the conference, which is I know that the conference record doesn't, we've seen teams that are, 8-12 or 9-11 get at large bids before, but 4-10, normally you see that and you're like, that is such a poor record that you're eliminated off the cuff, but they are playing in the best league and they do have some good resume wins. So you can't dismiss them, as getting into the tournament. Looking at Nebraska,
and still top 50 in KenPom.
I know.
It's weird.
It speaks to the depth of the ACC. I think that teams like Georgia and Oklahoma are being talked about as being, on the bubble still with such bad records in the league because of the wins they do have are good in the league. And in Oklahoma's case, they do have some excellent wins in the non-conference against projected teams getting in, Arizona and Louisville, among others. Nebraska is the Jekyll and Hyde team in the Big Ten for the most part. I mean, there's been instances where you see what the capabilities are of a Fred Hoiberg team from an offensive standpoint, where they look, really good. They look like they can beat anybody in the league, and then they've had some bad losses. They did just, split a tough road trip. They lost to a 500 Rutgers team at home earlier in the season. So it's been, up and down. I think if they get in, they can be dangerous because they have some guys that, obviously have experience playing at a high level, have played in the tournament. They have a coach that's has the experience being in the tournament in Hoiberg, and they can score. So they're a threat if they get in, but they have to still take a couple of steps to get there. And then Xavier, they avoided a bad loss to would have been a really bad loss to Seton Hall on Sunday if they had blown that game. And it's interesting because
21 at one point, right?
It was. I think it got to 3 or 2. So it got all the way down. The Big East is not, the Big East of old. The top 4 teams in the Big East, especially I think the top 3 of St. John's, Marquette, and Creighton are really legit. And then you kind of struggled lately, but there's still that pedigree there. And there's still that danger factor. So we've seen the committee not be kind to the Big East in terms of at-large teams in recent years. Obviously, last year, I think they only got 3. This year, they're pretty much locked in for 4. But will they get a 5th? And I think that is what's the interesting thing, because the bubble is so every day it's changing. It's so chaotic. And, I'm just going to pull up real quick here. I want to look at Xavier's schedule so I don't get anything wrong here, because I know they have, I think, 3 games left. Winning at home against Creighton would obviously be a big boost. Then they go to Butler, and then they got Providence. So those are 3 games. I think if they win those games and they're 21-10, 13-7 in the Big East going into the Big East tournament, they'll be in a pretty good position to get an at-large.
So Matt, okay, before we let you go here, I got to ask you about Gonzaga, because the metrics love them, but I'm looking at them and I go, okay, they haven't had a top 50 win since November, if I'm going by KenPom.
0-5 when trailing at the half.
Having that top 50 wins in November. Cannot, like, total front runners, as DB just mentioned. They've only got 2 top 100 wins since November, and yet they are a mortal lock. They're definitely not the best team in a mid to low major conference. Might be the 3rd best team in a mid to low major conference. But it's not just name recognition either, because the metrics, for some reason, love Gonzaga. Like, what is happening?
Another interesting stat that I saw this morning is that this is the first time that they've lost 4 conference games since 97-98, which coincidentally is the last time they missed the NCAA tournament. So they had a good record that year, but they lost 4 conference games. It's interesting because I feel like it was either last year or 2 years ago, we were in this almost same spot with Gonzaga talking about, excuse me, how they had relatively few big wins, the predictive metrics and the pedigree were there. They were going to get in, but people weren't sure how deserving or what they were going to do. And then they ended up in the Sweet 16. So they kind of had their typical kind of March showing. Again, you talk about a coach who's proven himself in Mark Few. I wouldn't put it past him to, if, assuming they do get in, to have them playing well in the tournament and, where they can win a game or two. Obviously, it's not like they don't have talent, with Ike and Khalif Battle and Nemhard. Like, these are all guys with a lot of experience in college, some of it in the tournament. So, I don't, by the way, I think is it Graham Ike or Ike? I always forget. My apologies if I mispronounced his name. But anyway, Gonzaga is a really interesting team to me because I think if they were anybody other than Gonzaga, they wouldn't really be in consideration for an at-large bid or they would have work to do. But I do think that at least in the perception or the bracketologist looking at it, you give more weight to that name because of their past and because of what their program has done. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they close out. I'm assuming they're getting in, but how they're seeded, how they're treated by the committee will be also fascinating. And then ultimately, how do they perform?
Let me get you out of here on this. Just kind of quick. Vanderbilt in or out?
I think when all is said and done, I think they're going to be in.
Carolina, new head coach or no?
I do.
Yeah, I as a diehard, it can't happen fast enough.
I know. Yeah, I say no, but I think the seat's going to be red hot for him going into next year. And I think you were going to say, like, it's crazy to think about in the last 3 years since that run to the title game. They might miss the tournament 2 times in 3 years. Once when they were preseason number 1, and then it's been really fits and starts for Hubert there. So I think he's just going to be under a really hot seat next year.
One last one, really. New coach in Austin.
I lean yes.
It's not good over the weekend for Old Tech.
Yeah.
That's our guy, Matt Hladik from the Spun. Matt, we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Always my pleasure, fellas. Always.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio or Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. It's time for Bet On It, where DB gives you winners, and I mostly do not help your bank account out at all. DB, before we get to some winners, so Matt,
There aren't
not a ton going on today.
Not real appealing.
Don't love what it looks like. Before we get to anything that might be on your bingo card, though, is I've been going through these exercises in my brain, right?
It's always scary.
I know. Exercise in general, kind of scary. No. I've been going through how we put together college basketball teams.
Mm.
And, Matt was talking about it a little bit there about kind of how teams get put together and how teams are kind of assembled and how they like, oh, I like this team's talent, but I don't totally know. And so a couple years ago, I went through all of the NBA or all the NCAA champions and how many NBA players they had on their roster. And from the time the tournament expanded through 2022, there were only 6 teams. So out of 40, there were only 6 teams that did not have at least 3 NBA players on their roster when they won the championship.
Wow, that's a few more than I thought. Probably one more than I would have guessed.
I mean, 3 is a lot. I mean, 3 is a
That's what
lot.
I'm saying.
Yeah. And each of those had at least 2. All of the 6 outliers had at least 2, right? So that's through 2022. I haven't updated the last few years. But, and I think Kansas in 2022 was in that group at the time, but I think they're out now because I think they got another guy from that team in the league, but I'd have to go back and double check. But at the same time, I've been going through these NBA mock drafts and things like that and looking at the teams that have guys that are going to go really high in the draft. And I go, outside of Duke, this hasn't really worked out for these teams that are having guys picked super high in the draft. Duke has 3 guys that are going to go in the top 10, most likely. Lottery, probably.
Okay.
And then nobody else that has anybody that is considered a top 20 lock is really that good. You've got Maryland coming on strong and Queens in that group, but you've got a bunch of teams.
And you're counting Broom outside the.
Yeah, Broom is outside, and he's not a freshman either. So
you're talking about pups.
Mostly, but that's because it's almost all pups until 20. Like there's only pups and Euros basically through 20. He's kind of outside that group in a lot of these mock drafts that I'm looking at. So I'm going, okay, obviously you got Duke. They're the outlier. They got a ton of talent. But I mean, this started with Rutgers, right? I'm like, how weird is it that Rutgers has 2 guys that are top 5 locks and they're terrible? Like they're not good. And then I'm going down this list and you've got a bunch of dudes. You've got Edgecombe at Baylor. He's considered a top 5 lock. Baylor's only okay. You got 2 guys from Illinois that are probably going to go in the top 20.
There might be the greatest head. Now, I'll give you health.
Sure.
But they may be the greatest head scratcher of any team in the country.
But between Will Riley and Kasparas Giacochonis, you're going to have 2 guys go in the top 15 to 20. Kasparas is going to go in the top 5. And they might not make the tournament. They're in trouble. Now,
and a lot of weird things happen with them. Like the mystery arm thing that happens in shoot-arounds. All of a sudden, guys get sick at the last minute.
It's weird.
It's an interesting basketball team, and one in which I obviously follow probably too close to be.
Yeah, but you're pretty dialed in on them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then you look at, okay, how do you feel about BYU?
I like BYU. I like BYU a ton. I was just telling you about the Rock and how they intimidated Kansas, and guys, 1,000-point scorers just getting baskets.
And then you had that super weird game against Arizona over the weekend.
Okay, I'm going to say this about Arizona and move on.
Okay. You're not a huge Arizona guy.
If you watch them play, I don't know how you could.
Yeah. No, I agree.
They don't come across it's weird. They don't come across as a team that's like super dialed into
they don't
being
seem
coached
terribly well
coached.
coached.
But Lloyd doesn't seem like a guy. He doesn't get off the bench sometimes.
He doesn't seem like a guy that's super interested in coaching.
It's just that's a crazy team to watch.
So I'm going to say,
because I do think they're talented.
They are.
They just don't play very.
They're
smart.
super talented, right? But so I'm going to put.
He's an incredible recruiter.
What's the thing I told you about Brad Underwood or about Illinois?
Yeah,
I just don't trust it. I don't trust Brad Underwood. Super talented team. They should be way better than they are. I kind of feel the same way about Tommy Lloyd.
Do you like Braswell? I think he's over.
Not
Might
really.
be overvalued.
But so you've got Damon from BYU.
He's fantastic.
He's one of the. He's considered a lottery guy, but BYU's. They're okay. I don't know that you would like. They're probably in that group of 40 teams that could make a Final Four, but you're not real sure on them.
So were you buying the fact that I think the middle is so fat this year?
Oh, it's huge. But I don't know if it's because there's 40 good teams or if there's 40 or if there's just a drop off. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if all of those teams are actually good or if they're just so inconsistent that anybody could make it.
Like, what's the real difference between Kentucky and Mississippi State?
I have no idea. None, I don't think. What's the difference between Kentucky and Ole Miss?
What's the difference
between A&M and Arkansas?
Well, how about this? How about Nebraska and Oklahoma?
Speaking of Oklahoma, top 10 guy, fierce. How good is Oklahoma? Not very. They have moments. But they're 4-10 in conference.
And sometimes, like, they just get blown the flip out. It's incredible.
And I'm a Porter Moser guy. I love Porter Moser. I'd love to see him do well.
You talk about a team that metrics love, though.
Don't understand it.
So right now I'm looking at, and the only reason do you guys know where I'm getting at when I send you the random, even though they're not in the same conference?
Oh,
blank versus blanks.
No.
I do that all the time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You're like Xavier, Oklahoma. That's the one I think you sent yesterday.
Because I'm trying to
find a barometer.
I'm trying to thin the bubble.
Mm-hmm. It's hard
when I look at
the
all these teams that are like projected to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I mean, did you watch Missouri through of stretches Saturday night?
Yeah,
it looked like a very good basketball team.
That's the thing about the bubble.
I get that happens. So I'm not saying you play well every night out. It's just the variance in the ceiling to the floor sometimes is incredible.
Well, that's the thing about that swath of 40 teams or whatever it is that I don't know what to do with, because you've got a bunch of teams that look really, really good on certain nights.
Like I think, like tomorrow, if the game was played, I think Louisville would beat Marquette.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people would agree with me on that. But
I could buy that. Marquette's not playing great right now.
Yeah, but if I said, hey, Robbie, Louisville's a Sweet 16 team, you'd be like, you do that, just what you're doing.
But then I remember, this middle swath of the tournament is super weird. Like, I might not feel good about it, but I'm not going to tell you no. Because I think there's outside of the very bottom, like auto qualifier, like most of the at-larges could make a Sweet 16, I think. I think most of them this year can make a Sweet 16.
Ooh. So 12 through 4s, basically?
Basically, yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm not saying – I think most of them. I think if we go through this, we can wait until Selection Sunday.
Was that you saying they're a bad 12 away? No, that was Sam.
Yes.
A team like Wisconsin who
is a bad 12 away.
Which would be top 20.
Yeah. Which right now they're projected higher than that even. Because they're ranked like 11th. I mean, they could be flirting with a 4. They're a bad 13 matchup away from getting bounced.
You bristled at Nova too. Out.
Oh God, Nova's terrible.
You hate Neptune though.
They're just bad. I hate them because they're poorly coached. It's not that I have anything personal against Neptune. You know what makes me mad is they went from one of the best coached teams in the country to one of the worst coached teams in the league overnight. It's and I get the talent isn't as good this year, but the first 2 years under Neptune, they had some dudes.
What did you like my benefit of the doubt question? UConn or Kansas? I give it to Kansas.
Really?
I do.
I give it to UConn.
I just think Kansas is more capable than UConn.
So here's the problem that I've got.
I think Kansas. I don't know about significantly, but I'm not sure like that. I don't even know if that's a hot take. I'm surprised you're giving me pushback. Can I talk you into the fact that I'm right?
Probably not. So here's my problem with Kansas is, first of all, I'm going to give, as much as I dislike Hurley, it's not like he's bad at his job. Like he knows what he's doing and he's been there recently, right? So like that matters to me. And Self does too, obviously. But I don't know how much Bill Self likes his basketball team this year. Yeah. And here's the thing.
I think that centers around just a couple of guys.
I'll say, I'm going to say the name you're thinking right now.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing is UConn doesn't have to deal with AJ Storr. And that matters to me a lot.
Oh, boy.
Like, I don't know how good you can be with AJ Storr on your roster. Sorry. Ask Wisconsin, ask St. John's. I don't think anybody feels that good about AJ Storr being on their roster.
It seems like he wouldn't be a lot of fun to play with.
No. And I think you see that when you play them or when you watch them. They don't seem like Dickinson doesn't seem terribly engaged most of the time.
Any shot's a good shot for him. And it's like
that's the whole team, though.
I wouldn't have shot that.
The whole team is just like, oh, it's your turn to kind of go ISO and we'll all just stand here. Okay, cool. Oh, now it's your turn to go ISO and we're all just standing here. Okay, cool. Oh, we haven't gotten Hunter a ball in about half an hour. Let's get him the ball. Oh, he actually ran hard this time. Let's get him the ball. I don't know. That's a team that I wouldn't feel good about picking Kansas for anything. Not that I feel great about UConn, but Kansas.
Did you watch them for like 18 minutes yesterday against St. John?
Kansas is a total no. Yes, I did. Kansas,
but I guess that's the same team I watched on Kansas and play BYU.
Yeah, Kansas is a total.
Getting their doors blown off in the first 38 seconds of that game.
Yeah, Kansas is a total non-starter for me. I'm just all the way out on Kansas this year.
It's incredible.
All the way out.
I might I smell a bet coming as a tournament advance.
I smell bet. That's bet on it. We'll be back with more.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. What's up?
Phelps in their backcourt.
Yeah.
D. Phelps, knee bandage, ace wrap.
Yeah.
Phelps won a national title.
Yeah.
Lefty Phelps. That is not a good team. Not a good Carolina team.
We're just playing off-air a little trivia with DB here, trying to get him to guess the 6 teams, well, 5 besides Kansas that I mentioned, that made it NCAA tournament champions without 3 NBA players, and that includes just a cup of coffee, just anybody that even just had a sip.
All right, I'm kind of. You got to be a little impressed.
I am. So you got Arkansas right off the bat, 94 Arkansas.
So I got Arkansas. I got Carolina.
Yep, 93 Carolina.
And Kansas. I just need 2 more.
You need 2 more. You need 2 more.
We better get to Derek first. Shane, how long has Derek been holding?
I'll let you think about it while we get to Derek here. Derek wants to talk about the Tennessee game. Derek, what's going on, bud?
Hey, I'm out here in Alliance, Nebraska, so that's actually Western Nebraska.
Shout out Alliance.
Hey, there we
Let's
go. Appreciate you. What's going on?
Yeah. So I think with the Tennessee game stuff, there's a couple things. The first one is I like to look forward to things. So I don't really look forward to Nebraska-Akron. That kind of game is the one where you're gardening and you're listening to Damon on the radio, not we're having people over type of game. Like Tennessee is.
Having people over. Hey, you want to come watch? No, I'm not watching that.
Just have a little garden party.
The second thing is the best game from last year was clearly Colorado, no doubt about it. And what I think you're saying is that we should never schedule those games again until everything else changes. So that's kind of it's not like replacing Tennessee with
let me pause you
somebody
there.
else I want to watch.
Hang on, D. I'll only speak for me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm saying that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying don't do the SEC. I start with that basic premise. Don't do the SEC any favors until they play the same number of conference games you do, because the risk reward is not advantageous for Nebraska. If you want to play Colorado,
Big 12, ACC, whatever else,
if you want to schedule another conference that either goes round robin or plays,
this is an SEC issue, not
a minimum of 9 conference games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any problems with that. None at all.
This is an SEC specific.
I'm not
issue.
saying schedule as many couch potatoes as possible, but don't do the SEC any favors.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense to me, because I think what I would summarize your position is that you're tired of Nebraska getting taken advantage of by people who we think are our friends or rivals, and you think we should use our position to get a more advantageous situation. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. I think that's definitely part of it.
To dictate terms on our own merits,
because they've acquiesced a ton just for the greater good, and sometimes they just got to take care of themselves.
Like Tennessee needs Nebraska more than Nebraska needs Tennessee in this situation, because Tennessee.
Yeah, so I'm going to go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to go a little third rail on you, and then I'm going to leave. So you realize that you just summarized the current president's foreign policy. All right, I'm out.
Derek, I appreciate that. For what it's worth. Running an athletic department, running a country, not the same thing. Just for agree or disagree on policy, they're just different.
Oh, I'm glad we waited for that.
That's a good walk-off.
That's pretty good mic drop.
That's a good walk-off, Derek. I appreciate that out in Alliance, Nebraska. Appreciate you listening out there.
Yeah.
No, that's – I think – yeah. So I think
each one's their own nation.
Oh, that's funny.
I think to be specific, this is an SEC issue, not a playing good opponents issue.
I'm just floored, literally, that Nebraska fans are up in arms over not doing the SEC.
Are they up in arms though?
I don't know. Maybe it's fake.
Is it a vocal minority? Maybe.
I don't know. I read a lot of dumb articles.
That's my stage name, by the way, vocal minority. Shane liked that one.
Shots fired.
I can laugh because nobody's hearing me laugh.
Oh, we heard you.
Except for when I call you out.
We heard you.
All right, back to my little trivia game, DB. You got 2 left. You got 93 UNC. We got 94 Arkansas. We got 2014 UConn. You got 2022 Kansas. There are 2 more teams.
Are you counting vacated titles?
No.
Because Trey Burke was it for Michigan.
They lost to Louisville.
Oh, Louisville didn't have 3 pros.
They did.
Who was the 3rd?
I'll find it. You got to trust my research here.
I do.
You got to trust
where got hurt? Louisville had 3 pros?
They did.
Okay. That's actually my first.
I'll look it up to verify who they were, but
no, I believe you.
Was I believe 2013?
See. And I don't know if you call that 12-13 or 13-14. You know I'm terrible at that.
Yeah, I'll figure. 12-13.
Okay.
So we'll figure it out here.
You could just go through it and I'd say yay or nay.
Louisville had 4.
Ooh, who were they?
Montrezl Harrell.
Good pull.
Peyton Siva. Had a cup of coffee. Russ Smith.
Yeah, Russ was a bucket.
And then
I didn't know Siva was a pro.
Yeah, he got a cup coffee. Not long, but he made it. And then
God, that's kind of tricky.
Dieng also got cup coffee.
Okay.
But I counted the cups of coffee for everybody. So
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Same,
I won't fight you over
same
that.
benchmark.
So I'm going to be too short.
So
not Todd. Different too short. So
I'm always too short.
So
did you see his cameo at the All-Star game?
Who?
Too short.
Oh, no.
That's all.
I think you're gonna be mad about one of them. 2013 or 2003 Syracuse.
Oh,
it was Warwick
and Anthony,
and that was it.
Yeah, little guard didn't get her done, did he?
McNamara never had a cup of coffee. That was it.
Hakeem Warwick,
dude, he was
is
good.
very underappreciated.
I loved Hakeem Warwick.
Everybody says like just mellow.
No, Hakeem Warwick was really good.
That little human pogo stick.
Got that block to seal the game.
I'm like,
Hakeem Warwick was
headband too.
Hakeem Warwick was good. I loved Hakeem
super
Warwick.
pogo stick.
The other one, 2021 Baylor.
Can you believe that was the team that got Drew off the schneid?
No. Now I do have to double check to make sure that nobody made it later from that team.
Well, you could just run through the names.
Oh, so Flagler got in after I did this originally. So they're no longer on the list.
Yeah, and he was drafted.
Yeah. But when I did this, he wasn't drafted yet.
So I don't know how much attention you paid to Iowa State and Houston over the weekend.
Yeah.
But between foul trouble and playing without your two best players, it was incredible that – and maybe I was just more excited listening to Kevin because he made it exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But the comeback, I'm like, see, this is the kind of thing – this is why I can't trust Houston. Because remember, I was on Houston early.
Yep.
But I'm like, they just go through too many droughts. And everybody says the same thing. Oh, that's just how they play. And I get it.
That doesn't make it okay.
But Iowa State could barely score. I think they had 26 at the half.
I think that's right. I believe that's right.
And they got that game
Shane.
tied.
Yeah. That can't happen.
I'm like, I just don't think that can happen.
No, not in the tournament. So
and then Cryer hit he hit like a bank three, a little floater, and I'm like,
22 at half for Iowa State. 22. For the record, both Kansas and Baylor are both now off the list since I originally compiled this. So you've only got 4 outliers.
I can't believe you would take UConn 2025 over Kansas for a run in the tournament. I'm mortified.
AJ Storr.
Oh my! Have you watched Caravan the last month?
Yep.
Did you watch him miss 6 threes in a row against Creighton and keep shooting them?
I did. I've also watched AJ Storr for 3 years. I've watched Hunter Dickinson for 10. No mas.
Oh, Lord.
I'll go all Roberto Duran on you here. No mas. That's Hurrdat Sports Live. We'll be back tomorrow.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.